Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting adventure. Today, Audio Novel presents World Creator System by just_4_fun 1997. But, don't forget, supporting authors like just_4_fun 1997 is what keeps these amazing stories alive. Show some love for their incredible work. And if you read advanced chapter, join authors' Patreon or Discord group, link available in video's description, don't forget to check out. And if you're looking for more amazing stories, don't forget to check out my Patreon page. Your support helps turn incredible tales like this one into fully immersive audiobooks. Join me on this journey, and together, we can bring more stories to life. Thank you for being part of the adventure. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Floating in black endless void was a tall, attractive man with tan skin and a muscular build. He has golden eyes and very long, black hair tied in a ponytail, and he was playing with a 3D projected figure of a planet. He was spinning it around and zoomed in to see a tiny figures that looked like humans that dressed as cultivators. Some of them were fighting with sword or flying on them, and some were fighting with elements. This was Eru. In the past he was human, who by unknowingly transmigrated and that too into a formless being in a parallel world with a system called World Creator System. Like the name suggests, it was sandbox-like system, which had the ability to create worlds. It was a direct system, whose role was to make him a supreme being. Which also had to buy things like high technology, superpowers, summons, etc. When questioned about why he needed any of them, after all he was a god, the system explained about restrictions being placed on creators when they enter their created world, like he would be a demigod figure in the world you created, so in normal worlds it might be safe, but as you create higher realm world it might get dangerous for him. Thus having these powers, skills, cultivation techniques, and summons are considered helpful. The knowledge provided by the system said there are low, medium, high-level gods, and each having 6 stages to it. Also their one final level, which was the supreme being. My rank at the time was a low-level god, and achieve or gain power was create world and gather what was known as chaos energy. The way for us to create world was simple. It was by using the very same chaos energy. The system gave us missions and achievements, which when accomplished would give us the chaos points. These chaos points could be used to buy things from the system. So like that he slowly created one world after another. At the start a copy of his original world, and nurtured from primitive age to space age, where he slowly learned the fact religious belief also can be converted into chaos energy or points. Also some rewards given by the system included templates of world that he knew as TV shows like GOT, MCU, etc. At the time he didn't use these, since there are requirements for certain templates. Like for MCU, you needed to be high-level god who can not only create universe, but also the multiverse. So he stuck to his missions and he went on creating world with sci-fi, magic, and cultivation worlds. He created variation of these worlds and experimented with them, like going into one of the worlds and interfering with world, like providing blessing, skills, and one time even had a relationship with a woman in the cultivation world. He decided to take the name Eru Elevator from then on, when he enters these world. So upon reaching high-level god, he just got bored, since in this parallel world he was a godlike being, who could just wave a hand and destroy a country or resurrect the dead. Now even his restricted form or avatar has power ranging from Charles Xavier's telepathy, Magneto's magnetism manipulation, power augmentation, etc. That's when he then remembered about the templates and decided to experiment on them. There were multiple templates to choose, but it decided to go for the lower level ones, which were God and Van Helsing. Chapter 2. Eru watched the 3D projected Earth-like planet in front of him. This was obtained from using the template of GOT. The world slowly progressed under his care. There was so-called Westeros, Essos, ET, and the different islands. He saw different places like future Valyria and Shadowlands. He slowly sped time and watched humans slowly progressed. He saw demons and even dragons develop in places, but these beings seemed to stay very close to the Shadowlands. Eru then with slight gesture of his hands moved 3D world and zoomed towards Westeros, inhabited by the children of the forest, a diminutive species of green seers and wood dancers, and the giants. The giants are primitive, wielding only tree logs as clubs. The children are somewhat more advanced, aboriginal hunter-gatherers who make villages in the woods. Eru smiled and said, "Let's create the old god's religion." He made his avatar to descent into the world. While in Westeros the children of the forest were going about their daily lives, they were without purpose and they always come upon issues with the giants, who once again attacked their group. That's when they saw a massive white stag. He looked at us with great dark eyes, his silvery antlers gleaming in the half-light. All of them felt a special presence form it like it was one with nature, and the next thing it did shocked them. The white stag shapeshifted into a humanoid figure. He had unfamiliar gold lines all over his body which resembled tattoos. His height was a full human arm length taller than that of an adult male, and he has developed six-pack abs. His horns had 5, the horns are curved inward toward his head and resemble a crown. His tattoos have also slightly changed. Certain tattoos give certain buffs. His hair has turned from silver gray to silver white, his eyes were glowing gold. It was Eru in different form, and he just raised his hand as the trees around them come to life and attacks the giants. Another tree sticks a root into the ground. It comes up further down, tree roots enchanted by magic grabs him and pulls multiple giants onto the ground, completely subduing them. The rest of the giants seeing this ran away, while the children of the forest looked at the figure in awe and fear. One of the children took the courage to walk towards Eru and questioned in their language, Jerna Moore, "Who are you, majestic one?" Eru smiled. He decided to give dramatic effect as flowers started to bloom everywhere and light from the sun shined right about him, making him look otherworldly as he said, "I am the creator of these lands and even you." This shocked all of them, while Leaf questioned, "You are a god?" Eru just gave a nod, and this was the start. He taught them how to protect themselves and taught them about dragon glass and even gave them small ability to use druidic magic. The children of the forest worshipped him from then on as the god of nature, leader of the old gods of the forest, and carved the faces into sacred weirwood trees. The children also developed great mastery of magic powers. Later on the giants came to an agreement with children of forest, and therefore no more fight occurred, and giants joined in praying to Eru, which got them the blessing of having better mental capacity. The total combined population of the children and the giants across all of Westeros wasn't enough to fill even one of the later 7 kingdoms, and so its vast primeval forests remained sparsely populated for many centuries. Chapter 3, Hello. Per 3. Eru watched as children of forest and giants were united and thriving together. They even made statue of him to pray to. He did warn them, "You will face many dangers and your future will depend on your choices." The children of the forest and giants bowed. While Eru was about fly away, a young Leaf questioned, "My lord, is there way to call you?" Eru was ready to fly off, but turned back as he hovered in the air, brazenly defying gravity. Wick only caused the children of the forest and giants to believe in him more. He smiled at her and answered, "Just pray." As Westeros was progress, he noticed there was also other spiritual beings slowly gaining sentience. One of them was a spirits-like drowned god, and another called LOTR, alternatively known as the Lord of Light. These were small-time spirit that became a small deities. Eru remembered the Lord of Light has been described as a fire god, and its clergy, fire priests, as his worship centers around fire and light. He remembered most of the worship practices of the Lord of Light involve fire. This can range from simple bonfires, to some extreme cases advocating the sacrifice of non-believers by immolation. The symbol of the Lord of Light is a fiery heart. The religion is led by the Red Priests, though both men and women can join the priesthood. Lord of the Light would have gained massive follower in the continent of Essos, but now Eru was going to cut them off before LOTR can gain the powers of a god. Eru was not afraid of these bangs since his power was way above them, and these spirits, even if they can gain so-called godhood, will never be able to escape the confines of the laws he placed on the GOT world. Also, LOTR for now was a high-level spirit, who was using his power to lure power-hungry humans to gain power through sacrifice. Eru grinned and muttered, "Let's counter them." Eru used water to fashion a spirit, which was named Olmo, tall, handsome, powerful, yet gentle. He has black hair, a neatly trimmed black beard, a deep tan, and sea-green glowing tattoos on his body become very faint and slowly glimmer. These tattoos are the one in the future that will link them to the old gods. He was more powerful than LOTR, who is now a high-level spirit now. Olmo quickly knelt in front of Eru and said with utter devotion, "What can I do for you, father?" Eru gesturing towards the Essos and said, "As you can see, son, this land I created is getting corrupted by spirits who are greedy for power. To attain godhood they are using these mortals' greed and lust." Olmo was angry and yelled, "I shall destroy them." For Olmo these so-called lowly spirits were desecrating his father's work, but Eru calmed him down and said, "I know it angers you, my son, but they have part to play in the future." Olmo was curious about what his father wanted to do. After all, with father's powers it was easy to kill them off. Eru explained, "I want you to act as counter to this religion that this LOTR is building." Olmo understood his father's plan and said, "You want to curb his influence and power." Eru smiled and replied, "You can bless your followers with powers to coerce these so-called Red Priests." Olmo nodded as he suddenly dispersed, changing his body completely into water. Eru watched as Olmo made his first group of followers, which was multiple villages that had been threatened and lost their families members to these red priests. When you help someone at the lowest point of your life, they will always remember you. In God's case, this can be used to get people to follow you. He used it multiple times. He knew it was manipulative, but end of the day he did not force them to follow him, not did ever treat his followers badly. Even though he was now a god, he had bias and sometimes hypocritical attitude because of his past life. Chapter 4. Olmo was now looking at village in Esso. They were threatened to be burned alive unless they provide live human as sacrifice for the so-called Lord of the Light. This is not the only village that was threatened, so Olmo decided to use this situation to his advantage. He started giving leaders of these villagers visions and even pulled their astral forms to make a meeting between them. Each village leader as follows: Thorir, Gina, Ilaro, and Trago. All of them were having these visions that seemed to so real, and it told them that future. It was horrible. Then something happened. They felt a wrenching sense of dislocation, and for a moment all of them were pulled out of their bodies, looking at their own body from across the room. Their souls were dragged away to distant place. It looked like an enchanting city underwater. They all were shocked seeing fishes swim by them, and they did not have a problem breathing. All of them looked at their own bodies and saw a strange glow around them, trailing wisps of light. Thorir questioned, "What is happening and who did this to us?" Thorir knew some of their people, since they have traded food and stuff with each other, and all of them were as shocked as him. So he was sure they were the ones who bought them here. Then everyone heard a voice. It was strong, yet had a gentle feeling. "I called you here." Everyone turned to see tall, handsome, powerful, yet gentle. He has black hair, a neatly trimmed black beard, a deep tan, and sea-green glowing tattoos on his body become very faint and slowly glimmer. All of the village leader could tell this figure was by no means an ordinary man, while Olmo continued, "My name is Olmo, god of the sea, storms and earthquakes." All of them were shocked and then quickly remembered the so-called red priests and priestess talk about LOTR, the Lord of Light. They quickly reacted and knelt before Olmo, who told them to rise. All of the in slight fear stood up as Olmo spoke up, "Don't fear, I won't harm you, instead I want to help you with your present situation." All of them were surprised at the same time, felt hope. Gina took a deep breath and asked, "My lord, are you the one who sent those visions?" Olmo gave nod and explained, "This whole world is created by Father, and LOTR, who is just a lowly spirit, is corrupting it." Thorir was in awe and asked, "What do we call the creator?" Olmo smiled and said, "Eru Iluvator, the One, the All-High, the Father of all." They were in awe, while Ilaro was really hoping to take revenge for his brother, who was killed by the red priests, and questioned, "You are going to help us?" Olmo sighed and answered, "I can give you the tools and abilities, the rest is up to you." While they were still slightly disappointed, Olmo saw this and explained, "I have divine laws that forbid me from directly intervening. Only one who can disobey them is my Father, the Creator himself." These so-called divine laws were real. It was something Eru created, so the situations like Greek or Roman pantheon is created here. He didn't want a Zeus situation to happen, while any so-called gods created by him in these worlds are loyal to him, but they are able to feel emotions like humans, so they can fall in love with mortal, which could cause demigods popping up. All the village leader looked at each other and agreed. Olmo blessed them with the ability to bend water in any form. Basically, water bending was something Eru told him to do. In the future, these villagers will start a religion based on Olmo following him. Also, they will gather new recruits with Olmo giving them visions like how Lord of the Light did, but they did not have to sacrifice anything. Only thing they had to do was use their powers to serve the realm. So they were able to defeat the red priests and thus create a group that countered the Lord of Light's practices. Also, this was the start of the ancient gods like Olmo, Yavanna, Surya, Vayu, Indra, Mandos, and their father Eru, slowly gaining more foothold in the entire realm. Chapter 5. Eru was happy with the outcome, while he was now thinking about what else to do. Since he already had religions in Essos and Westeros set up, now he was looking at different places. He thought about ET, but decided to leave the place be since he saw another spirit called the Lion of Night, which was as a god in ET. Eru hummed and muttered, "Well, he is annoying, but he can be kept in check by the people of ET themselves." He remembered how the Lion of Night fathered a son on the Maiden Maid of Light. This son was the god on earth, who ruled the great empire of the dawn for 10,000 years before ascending to the heavens. The descendants of the god Earth ruled the empire after him, each ruling a shorter time than the previous one, until the brother of the Amethyst Empress usurped her in the blood betrayal and crowned himself as the Bloodstone Emperor, ushering in the long night. The Maiden Maid of Light turned her back upon the world, and the Lion of Night came forth in all his wrath to punish the wickedness of men. Ulmo, who was next to Eru, questioned, "Are they spirits too?" Eru nodded and answered, "Yes, they are. But more powerful than LOTR. Also, they are not an issue for us." Eru decided to move on to another group of spirits that are not powerful, but smart enough to band together and create a group now called Faith of Seven. The Faith of the Seven, and although their followers holds that there is one God who has seven faces or aspects: the Father, the Mother, the Maiden, the Crone, the Warrior, the Smith, and the Stranger. Each aspect represents one part of life or existence. Eru knew it would become the main religion of the Seven Kingdoms in the original timeline. It is little practiced beyond its borders. The Faith of the Seven was dominant in the south of Westeros, but saw they were barely able to hold themselves together with followers of LOTR and ancient gods spreading in Essos. Eru hummed and muttered, "No wonder they took their strongest followers and went to Westeros. They did not have a strong base in Esso, so they subjugate and convert first men to increase their influence and power." The Faith of the Seven is the main religion of the Seven Kingdoms. It is little practiced beyond its borders. The Faith of the Seven is dominant in the south of Westeros. But this time he wasn't about to let them run wild, since he had plans to get Reach and Dorne to his side at the very beginning. Eru decided they needed more gods or goddesses to help Ulmo with managing Westeros and Essos. Eru took earth and plants as the base to mold a goddess this time, which slowly came to life, taking the appearance of a full-grown young woman with red hair and blue eyes along with well-defined facial features. She is an ethereal beauty. When she opened her eyes, Eru smiled and named his daughter, Yavanna, Queen of Earth. Yavanna gave a tender smile and said, "Father." She has explained everything, and Eru himself introduced her to the children of the forest, who quickly accepted her. Leaf was also happy with Eru's visit, asked, "Creator, we thank you for taking care of us." Eru nodded and then decided to once again warn them, "There are tough times ahead of you, so stand strong and united." Neither Leaf nor the other children of the forest at the time understood the warning, but they did later. It was 12,000 before conquest that a human ethnic group, the First Men, invades Westeros across the arm of Dorne from Essos. They found the land to be blessed with abundant of food, but they found there were other inhabitants here. But it was not something they could overlook. So the War of the First Men and the Children of the Forest started, which lasted for generations. Chapter 6. A/N. Also, another thing about Valyria will have gods that are modeled after Egyptian gods and Greek gods. They will be similar to the versions from the movie Gods of Egypt. I don't know if this is good idea or not. The war started. The children possess strong magic powers, and with giants by their side they were not easy to defeat. But the First Men were better armed with bronze weapons, and simply more numerous. Children of the forest started losing number in the wars, so they prayed to the ancient gods and Eru, and which was answered as Eru gave them blessing, which resulted in their magical powers getting a boost. The children of the forest used their magic to call down the Hammer of the Waters, destroying the arm of Dorne and creating the island chain known as the Stepstones. Destroying the land bridge prevent more humans from crossing to the continent on foot, but there are already far too many in southern Westeros to stop. Also during the time, Yavanna also helped them by preventing many of the children of the forest from getting killed by providing help, which was really appreciated. Eventually the children of the forest called down the Hammer of the Waters a second time, to try to split Westeros in two, and retreat to the northern half, but this time they only succeed in flooding the neck, transforming its fields into swamps and bogs. During this time children of the forest panicked and becoming desperate because unlike First Men they didn't have huge numbers. So they created the Night King. But by the time years of warfare had caused, the two sides agreed to a truce. The children could not win, but the First Men feared the same, believing they would lose if they continued to fight the children to extinction. Wiser heads prevailed, and so the children and First Men made the pact on the Isle of Faces. The First Men took control of the open lands and the children took control of the forested interiors. The children of forest removed their plans about the Night King. They slowly taught the First Men their first writings, and since they written records were kept. In time, the First Men adopt the worship of the old gods of the forest. There was peace until the long night. Eru who watching everything from the void, so it begins. Yavanna saw there something dark about the Night King, and it looked at everything with hate, and her thoughts became reality, when Night King turned on the children of the forest and wanted everything living to die. Yavanna was worried, questioned, "Are we going to help them?" Eru shook his head and answered, "We will help them, but not now. They must know choices have consequences." Yavanna was sad seeing children of forest get attacked by Night King. But Ulmo agreed with his father and added, they made a mistake and they have fixed it themselves, if we correct it for them, which may lead to them never understanding the consequences. Yavanna slightly nodded and asked, but can we advise or warn them? Eru nodded, which gave her hope they will get out of this alive. While Eru, Yavanna, and Ulmo went to meet the children of forest responsible for the cause of the Night King's creation, they begged the ancient gods for forgiveness. In a flash of light all of them appeared before the children of forest, who were happy and guilty. Leaf filled with courage told the Eru creator, we made a mistake. Eru nodded, I warned you multiple times that your choices would have consequences, also nothing good would have come by playing with such dark rituals. All of them bowed their head, apologized profusely. Eru spoke up, go and warn the first men and join forces with them, since you created this being it is your duty to kill it and so we will give you the tools necessary to combat them. Children of Forest agreed and they were given information about Dragon Glass being the Night King and White Walker's weakness. Also they quickly warned the first men about the incoming darkness. Eru also provided them with a captured walker. Eru whispered, the first men need a leader, someone strong and with really powerful magic in them. While Yavanna questioned, have you found one, father? Eru smiled and seeing the famous Azor Azai, who was a man from east, he settled down in Westeros with his wife and Eru decided to visit him. Now another issue he wanted to talk about was Ulmo's waterbenders and Essos, so he turned to Ulmo and asked, so what about your followers? Ulmo smiled and replied, their influence and power has been growing over the years and have established themselves. Eru nodded, he heard Ulmo explain about how his followers call themselves water priest or priestess, how their nature of healing led them to be more accepted than followers of R'hllor, but Water Clan was also able to show they are not to be messed with too when threatened. A whole group of R'hllor followers were encased in ice and made into sculptures for everyone to see as an example. Eru muttered, that's good. Ulmo added, there's some like a growing civilization by the Roine River that have accepted it and are now praying to us, I have blessed them too. This was the great civilization of R'hllor, who would later move to Dorne. Ulmo told his father that on the eastern continent of Essos, the ancient Giscari Empire was flourishing on the eastern coast of Slaver's Bay, one of the oldest, if not the oldest, great civilizations in the world. The Giscari Empire is built on large-scale slavery of conquered peoples, who toil away to build the Great Pyramids of Old Guys and its colonies. Eru smiled and said, everything is moving in place. He turned to Ulmo and added, keep an eye on R'hllor and those red priests/priestess. Ulmo nodded, while Yavanna questioned, what about Lion of High from E.T.? Eru waved it off and answered, he is no threat. Yavanna nodded, letting it go. Chapter 7. A great winter that lasts a generation descends on the world, followed by a night that goes for years. The leaders of the first men at the time received vision of the Night King and the destruction he would bring to Westeros. So they joined forces. Tower children of forest and giants, there were green seers and wargs that joined the war. Eru was watching everything and he decided to help them out with an extra help. He fashioned a giant wolf with his powers. He had plans to send this fellow when the time is right. While under the cover of darkness, the White Walkers invade Westeros from the uttermost north. But due to warning they were able to fight off the first wave, but it still caused immense suffering and destruction. At the time Azor was readying for next battle, but needed a powerful sword to fight the Night Walkers and Night King. He labored for 30 days and 30 nights until it was done. However, when he went to temper it in water, the sword broke. He was not one to give up easily, so he started over. The second time he took 50 days and 50 nights to make the sword, even better than the first. To temper it this time, he captured a lion and drove the sword into its heart, but once more the steel shattered. The third time, with a heavy heart, he knew there was visions from so-called Lord of Light that he had to get the sword he had sacrificed his beloved wife. But then he saw transparent ghost-like figure standing by the window. He recognized the figure as Eru immediately because of the statues all around Westeros. Azor quickly bowed, my lord. Eru had sad smile and asked, you don't have to sacrifice anyone for the sword. If you did, R'hllor would not only had your wife's would but yours too. He would have used these souls to empower himself, which would mean her soul would never be able to rest. Azor was in shock and was scared of the fact he almost sacrificed his beloved wife's soul to such monster. Azor was in tears, while Eru spoke up, show me that sword. Azor did as he was told. Eru waved his hand over sword which began to glow and morph into a beautiful and majestic blade. It a hand and a half sword with a curved crossguard and a slightly longer hilt than usual. The glyph for fire, in the ancient language, Breezinger, was engraved on both the blade and the scabbard. It had a dark blue scabbard, with a leaf-shaped steel cap on the end of the scabbard. The blade itself was a lighter iridescent blue and contained cable-like patterns within it, as well as a flame-like pattern marked the transition between the soft spine of the blade and its hard edges. The guard was made from blued bright steel, the grip was made from black hardwood. Lastly, there was a large blue sapphire in the pommel held in place by 4 ribs, which looked like claws, made from blued bright steel. It was really Briesinger. While Azor looked at Blade in awe and Eru explained, "This is Briesinger. Whenever you say the name, the sword burst into a blue flame. It will help you defeat the White Walkers." Azor bowed and was grateful, and he watched Eru disperses into thin air. Also, he knew Azor was going to have future relations with Brandon Stark, who would become his right hand and marry Azor's daughter. Brandon Stark was not the only who was also gifted in magic. There was Garth Greenhand, who an oldman he was the ancestor of Gardenas, and his son Garth the Gardener would later be taught by the children of the forest. There multiple heroes during this war like Durin, called Durin God's Grief, was the mythic first Storm King and the founder of House Durandon, etc. But for Eru the figures like Brandon Stark, Garth Greenhand, and his son Garth the Gardener were interesting ones. Since Greenhand was old and couldn't fight in the war, he instead went the route of a healer to help the injured, and his son was also not a fire, but helped everyone by providing food and helping as much as possible. While the rest of first men, giants, and children were readying themselves for the next wave. They knew more would come since they were not able to kill the Night King last time. So they all prayed to Eru, Yavanna, and Ulmo. That's when they heard huge growl and menacing voice. "Humans, I have come to help you in your endeavor to kill the Night King by Lord Eru Ilyavator." The owner of the voice was a huge wolf with such lustrous silver coat, with both his hands and feet dyed red with a luminous effect. It was radiating such a divine aura that it was ridiculous to even compare it to dire wolves or even White Walkers they had seen up until now. Everyone froze. They didn't even quiver, but they felt slight relief hearing this massive wolf was sent by Lord Eru. This gave everyone more hope, while Leaf with low tone questioned, "O mighty wolf, what is your name?" The wolf answered, "Fenris." They simply bowed. While the war began with the White Walkers, the arrows made from dragon glass rained on the White Walkers, and Azor using his flaming sword started cutting through the White Walkers easily. All of the first men, giants, and children of forest could feel that they were not getting tried, nor was the cold affecting them. An added fact was they felt their strength had been boosted. Azor felt excitement and happiness as he yelled, "Our Creator has blessed us, so fight with everything you have." The army was now fully invigorated, and with roar they rushed to fight the White Walkers, who were completely shocked. They were even also taken by surprise seeing Giant Wolf enter the battlefield. It ripped through the Whites and White Walkers easily. Also, Night King at present was not as experienced in battles and nor did have full control over his ice magic. So only thing he could do was retreat, which he did successfully, but barely. He had to sacrifice majority of his army to escape at the time. But internally he vowed to come back for revenge. Chapter 8. Brandon Stark, after learning magic from children of forest, hard to create the wall with artifice and magic to bar against the walkers, returned. He married the daughter Azor. He also was slowly setting in land of north, while Eru called forth the so-called heroes like Bren the Builder, Garth the Gardener, Duran God's Grief, Elden Dane the Morning Sword, Lon the Clever were called by Eru to blessed. Lon and Duran directly asked for gifts, like Duran wanted super strength and Lon wanted luck and fortune. Eru blessed them with their respective wishes. While Garth, Bran, and Elden only wanted blessing for their land and people, which made Eru happy and wanted to give them more, so he waited for the right time. All of the heroes were given an oath stone, which is their life and history etched on it. Eru explained, "When you take your oath at the protector of your land in front of it, your father and ancestors will appear before you as specters and bless you." The blessings of their ancestors and fathers brought great joy for all of them, since all of them lost their parents during the war. Also, to get blessings of your forefathers and ancestors were a great achievement. Also, to make contact with your dead loved ones was added bonus. They were all happy with what they got and went on the journey to create their own kingdoms. Now with such blessing they were bound to be successful. While on the other hand, despite their victory, the children of the forest and giants suffered heavy losses in the war, and that's when Yavanna appeared before them. Leaf, seeing Yavanna, spoke up, "Lady Yavanna." Savannah smiled and gesturing towards the northern land said, "Father has set a land beyond the wall for children and the giants. It is protected with magical barriers. This is a new beginning for your people." Leaf was really thankful. While she quickly told her people and the giants the situation, they got ready to travel to the location given by Lady Yavanna. At the time there was first men tribes unlucky enough to be living north of the wall when it is constructed are trapped in the lands beyond. They were completely isolated, so seeing there is no other way, half of the tribes followed the children and giants. They were taking a high risk, but it paid off at the end. Whilst rest of the tribes that stayed behind eventually hostile to the growing kingdoms of South, despite their shared ethnic background. These new tribes call themselves the Free Folk, though the kingdoms south of the Wall consider them to be barbarians, and derisively call them the Wildlings. Despite their differences, the Free Folk continue to follow the same religion of the old gods, just like their cousins to the south of the Wall. The tribes that followed the children and giants soon reached the place. It was empty and it was cold because of the snowy weather. All of children and giants firmly believed their creators, while first men tribes were doubtful. Lady Yavanna and Eru were waiting for them. Eru gesturing behind him as the empty snowy land started to shimmer, and a great and enchanting forest appeared out of nowhere. It was shocking sight to see and mysterious because the forest was not affected by the cold winter. Eru looking towards the children of forest and giants, "This is your reward for fighting the White Walkers. This forest is safe haven for your people, where neither weather or food will be problem for you. You will never have to fear of invaders or others hurting you because of the barrier." Children of forest and giants knelt before their savior and creator, while Eru turned towards the first men, who were hoping they will also be allowed to stay. Eru smiled at them and said, "You can also stay, but my only condition is that you live in peace with the children and giants." The firstman tribe's leader Mora quickly bowed and said, "We will follow your laws without question, my lord." Eru and Yavanna smiled. Both of them slowly disappeared into the winds. These humans slowly started to call themselves more folks. They were peaceful folk, who lived in harmony with the giants and children of forest, but these three will unite together if situation demands it. Chapter 9. The first men form a shifting quilt of small kingdoms across West Arrow south of the Wall, gradually coalescing into larger kingdoms. The so-called legendary heroes of this time period slowly started housed of other own. All of them would be the ancestors of the great houses that rule the seven kingdoms in later centuries. Bran the Builder may have ruled the north from Winterfell, was sort of a high king. Garth the Gardener builds Highgarden and settled in the fertile fields of the Reach. Eldon Dane was traveling with his family and group to find the right place to start his kingdom too, but was having a hard time with finding one, since many good and fertile lands were already occupied. Both Bran and Garth were avid believers of Eru and friends since studied magic together under the Children of Forest. They had a vision of Eru calling them, so they both came to ancient gods' temple created by the Children of Forest and giants to pray for success of their respective kingdoms, since they were only starting out for such a huge mission. When they prayed, Eru appeared before them. He was in his translucent ghost-like figure, which made both of them kneel before him. Eru smiled and said, "It seems that rest of your group has gone on their endeavors." Brandon spoke up, "Yes, my lord." Brandon told about Lon the Clever swindles House Casterly out of Casterly Rock and its rich gold mines using nothing but his wits, becoming the founder of House Lannister. Durin God's Grief was building the impregnable fortress Storm's End, founding House Durandon, ancestors of House Baratheon. Eru hummed and said, "All of you have bright futures." Garth and Bran were happy to hear this. Eru continued, "I will give additional gift to all of you, since you both have done great things during the war." Eru blessed Bran and said, "I will bless North will abundant game and blessed land for bountiful harvest. You will be provided with crops they will be able to grow even in the coldest seasons." Bran was happy, since he was worried about how people will survive in the north, but now that was okay. Eru smiled and said, "I will leave you a protector for North. He will stay by the Shivering Sea and only take orders from one chosen by Ulmo himself. A mark of trident will appear on the chosen one. From the most came a massive white dragon with pronounced, mammoth-like tusks. It comes and rests benevolently on the banks, his stately countenance like that of a lion surrounded by his pride, or wolf with a pack, for now it was the size of 2 elephants, since it was young. Bran looked at the beast in awe, while a mark of trident appeared on his arm signifying his part as chosen. Eru warned, "There will be times when there is no chosen ones, so he will go into slumber. Also Fenris to guard the north. Also remember, he is not yours to order around. He only guards the north as a whole and when it needs it." Bran was happy and okay with it and asked, "My lord, I have question about the wall." Eru replied, "I know, you don't have numbers to defend the wall." Bran gave a nod, while Eru gave the answer, "Give people befits like small reduce in tribute and small part of land given to them for guarding the wall. I will also bless the wall to make sure there is not issue for people to live there." Bran nodded again. He was happy with results and wanted to employ this when he gets back. While Eru turned to bless Garth, "You and your father were immensely helpful in taking care and healing everyone, so I will give you this magical seed." Garth was happy, but then he got information. About what the seed was capable of, the magical tree was named Yggdrasil, which provides fruit every 50 years and it can cure every disease or even boost physical capabilities. Also, to make sure no one steals it, there is magical shield around it and only selected member of gardener family could retrieve it. He or she is selected by Yavanna. So it is impossible to get it even if someone is able to get into their family by marriage. Garth was happy and knelt before the arrow, but EU telepathically warned him, make sure to not let anyone know about this until you are strong enough. I will also provide you a guardian for the tree. At first Garth was worried about enemies, but soon signed in relief hearing who only his blue dine and someone personally selected by Lady Yavanna could get the fruit. The added bonus was Mighty Guardian guarding it. Eru had plans to give something similar to Layton from Percy Jackson as guardian to them. He added, just like Bran, your family will have a chosen one by Yavanna, the person will have a mark on them. Eru smiled at both of them and said, both of you must stay strong together, there are harder times coming in the future, so you must brave it together. Garth and Bran seriously nodded, both already had plans of making alliances with each other. Their alliance and dynasties would continue as House Gardener, though Garth's numerous descendants also found many other vassal houses throughout the Reach. Bran started building the castle of Winterfell, founds House Stark and the Night's Watch, which employed men who were given benefits in return for guarding the wall. But Stark still have civil war after the death of Bran and his son, who also had the mark of Ulmo, but Ulmo did not choose anyone in the next generation because of finding one capable enough to control the beast. Before, rivals kept a distance because of fear of the bewilderbeast. It was mainly from their rivals the House Bolton, who revolted, but it was completely squashed with time. While Era now looking for of Eldon Dane, who was the last hero that did great things during the war. He was in pinch, since they were not able to find a good land to settle. Eldon was now going to a temple built in south of Westeros. A/N, what should I give House of Dane? Chapter 10. Eru watched as these so-called heroes slowly developed their own kingdoms. It was interesting to watch, but it was then he remembered the later plot of the world is annoying. There are key points that are hard to change, like in Dance of Dragon, you can either save Emma Arryn or her child, which would not change the fact the war will still take place. Like if we save the son, the boy will have slight issues like dyslexia, ADHD, etc. So he also will not be interested in throne and want his sister to succeed the throne, but you will see Alicent subduing Viserys because of auto-manipulation. Similarly, if Emma survived, she will be traumatized by the events and stay apart from Viserys, which would lead to the same situation with Alicent seducing him on Otto Hightower's orders. Also, in each world there are people with great luck called protagonist or son of heaven. These people gained luck through the help of the great deeds done by their ancestors. So obviously God World had a son/daughter of heaven or protagonists like Sansa, Bran, Arya, and Jon Snow. All of these characters have faced great danger, but at the same time had immense luck, making them have higher chances of survival than normal folks. For example, Jon's life is considered terrible and at the same time lucky because of both his family's luck. The great deeds done by his maternal and paternal family gained him great luck, but at the same time his paternal family gained a lot of bad fortune over the centuries, thus leading to his bad life. Eru was in deep thought, hummed and muttered, what to do and where to interfere. The first issue was the Undul invasion, where Unduls under Faith of Seven invaded Westeros. They practically wiped out old gods' religion and weirwood trees found all over Westeros. They even killed some of the children due to the forest present at the time. The second was Aegon's conquest, which can also be changed. Eru already had plans for Undul invasion. He wanted to be directly involved, while he heard prayers from Eldon Dane. It seems they were in trouble and have no idea where to go. Eru wanted to help him, so decided to create another son to guide people of Dorne, also someone to help me with guiding the souls to afterlife. He slowly molded a figure from sunlight, another figure from laws of death. The model figured from Sun War brought this new figure to life. He was a tall, muscular, tanned middle-aged male with bright, flaming hair. He now wears a more Greek costume with his top exposed, covered with white tattoos in the shape of the sun. He dons a pair of multi-layered armored bracers, a flame-shaped crown on his head. The one with laws of death was a tall man with dark, shoulder-length hair in waves. He appears to have pointed ears and a pale complexion. He wore a black robe with blue borders, with a crown of thorns on his head, and his hair grows longer. His skull mark is clearly visible in this form. The ends of his robe seem like flames, but are actually luminescent cloth. His robe and overall appearance is said to represent the deep sea. Eru smiled at and named him Mando's keeper of the houses of the dead, ruler of the dead. I am leaving here to govern the underworld, my son judge the souls justly. Mando is bowed and with solemn tone replied, I am here serve only you, father. Eru nodded and turning to his other son, Surya, god of the sun. The figure quickly knelt on the floor and said, Father. Eru nodded and continued, My son, for now I want you to go guide House of Dane and the people, who follow him to the south of Westeros. What you must to help them. Surya nodded and disappeared in flash of light, while Eru watched the events happen. So did Mandos, who disappeared to the underworld to do his duty. Eru sighed in relief and muttered, Well, now I don't have to watch and judge the dead. Down in Westeros, Eldon Dane with his family and group were praying to the ancient gods for guidance. They were in need of help, since they could not find a good place to settle. Every place was already claimed. That's when in a flash of light a mysterious and enchanting figure appeared before them. The figure was otherworldly. Eldon Dane and his family was in daze, while Surya spoke up, I am Surya, god of the sun, and I sent there by my father, Eru. Eldon Dane and everyone quickly knelt before Surya, who simply, I heard your prayers and I have solution for it. Go far south and you will find the answer for your troubles. Eldon and everyone nodded. They quickly bore way before Lord Surya and said, Thank you for your guidance, my lord. Surya shook his head and replied, I will be there to guide you. Eldon and his family were happy with this and quickly ordered his men to make the journey. It was a dangerous, as this was known to be hottest region of Westeros. The region is rocky, mountainous, arid and dry, and features the only desert on the continent. They are all walking across the golden dunes, very tired. All of them still walked towards the destination. Some were doubtful, but Eldon refused to believe this. Ma walked forward. Then one of his son asked, Father, I am thirsty. Eldon knew their water pouches were empty, so with sadness said, Don't worry, we will find more water for you. Then he heard the voice, I see you have arrived. Eldon and everyone was happy and turned to see Lord Surya floating in the air. He smiled at them and with a wave of his hand they felt their thirst and hunger vanish. Surya smiled at them and said, I have blessed your people with the ability to adapt to the desert. Every one of your descendants will have this blessing. Eldon was happy, while he was confused about how they were gonna live in the desert with no water or food. But that was answered with Lord Surya simply waving his hand. Suddenly, in a circle around him, lush green vegetation springs up out of the sand, then explodes out exponentially all over the place, and even a giant lake appears. It was amazing to watch. Also Surya explained, the land is blessed with fertility and the water will never run out. Eldon and his family and everyone that followed him quickly bowed. This was all they wanted, and they quickly thanked their patron god, praise Lord Surya and Lord Eru. Surya smiled and added, Your family bloodline is blessed to have mastery in any weapon they choose. With that Surya disappeared, as Eldon was happy with these gifts, but he focused on the current tasks and quickly started to settle people in. Also they found small houses already built there. It was everything they could ask for. That night Eldon was gazing up rapturously at the array of stars or gems glowing in the night sky, and then saw shining gems shower overhead. He noticed something flashing high in the sky. Another meteor, this one very close. Shooting stars. Heralds of great change are to come for anyone who witnessed them. It fell as thudded to earth in a nearby. Eldon ran to the place to find a small, smoking crater provided evidence of where precisely it had struck. That's when he heard Lord Surya's voice, Use the piece of sky stone, star, to create your sword. Let this be a gift and guide your people via these treacherous times. Eldon quickly looking at the piece of sky stone muttered, I will not disappoint you, my lord. This the House of Dane symbol and sword were created. Every great swordsman from the family is called Sword of the Morning, and all of wields the legendary greatsword Dawn, a blade said to be created from the heart of falling star. Their blazon is a white sword and a falling star, crossing on a lavender background. Also they started building and praying to ancient gods, and among them Eru and Surya had the most followers in Dorne. Chapter 12, Chapter 11. All kingdoms grew to become prosperous, much like Winterfell in the north. Highgarden flourished under the leadership of King Garm Gardner and his father, Garth. Dorne was led by King Eldon Dane, and these three kingdoms maintained strong bonds and alliances. House Lannister united the Westerlands through a combination of war, wealth, and marriage alliances. They skillfully defended the region against constant raids from the nearby Iron Islands and established the Kingdom of the Rock. In the Reach, Old Town gradually grew to become one of the largest cities in Westeros. It was ruled by House Hightower, and within the city, a guild of scholars and healers formed. While Highgarden had a similar guild, they focused on healers and merchants. Dorne had similar cases, but their focus was on trade and warriors. Garth the gardener, along with his son Garm, dedicated themselves to unifying the land and creating the perfect place for the Yggdrasil tree over the course of 30 years. Originally, House Gardner ruled the northern portions of the reach around Highgarden. However, they gradually absorbed surrounding petty kingdoms through peaceful marriage alliances. Garth with his son Garm got ready to plant the Yggdrasil tree. So after carefully planted the seed in a nearby hill, next to their castle, they watered it and moved away from the stop, since the instructions told them it was dangerous to stay close, mainly because of the fact Yggdrasil will grow at tremendous rate. They waited patiently and then all of them felt the ground tremble. At the center of the hill, a tree was growing rapidly and noisily. Crrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr all residents, both predator and prey. The nearby kingdoms narrowed their eyes in the direction of the noise. Finally, the tree broke the surface of the ground, causing a slight tremor. Observing this peculiar tree, one could see that it not only grew taller at a stupendous rate but also became thicker. It was already 2 meters thick and still growing. However, the mere growth of a tree wouldn't be enough to make all those dumb animals flee as if there was an apocalypse. It was the extremely dense amount of essence that accompanied its emergence. The Yggdrasil, oh, how magnificently they graced the blessed realm. Picture a realm untouched by mortal hands, bathed in ethereal radiance, where beauty transcended the boundaries of imagination. Within this enchanted realm stood the Yggdrasil, like celestial sentinels, emanating an aura of grandeur that held all who beheld them in awe. Imagine, if you will, the trees standing tall and proud, their trunks adorned with shimmering silver bark that seemed to possess a life of its own. Their branches stretched outwards, reaching towards the heavens with an air of divine yearning, as if longing to touch the very fabric of the stars. Their leaves, delicate and translucent, glistened with a luminous glow, as though kissed by the light of countless sunsets. Each leaf bore a unique pattern, a tapestry of vibrant hues that whispered tales of forgotten realms and ancient lore. It was as if the essence of every color that ever graced the universe had been carefully woven into the foliage. But it was the fruit of the trees that truly bewitched the senses. Like precious gems, they hung from the branches, radiant spheres of light and life. The golden fruit of Yggdrasil emanated a warm, celestial glow. To stand beneath the branches of these hallowed trees was to be touched by a sense of wonder and magic, as if the veil between the mortal realm and the divine had grown thin. Garth and his family watched the events in shock and awe, but he quickly snapped out of it upon seeing a portal appear below the tree. Out of the portal emerged a terrifying and enormous being with 100 heads, resembling a fusion of 100 pythons. Its serpentine body was thicker than an elephant, and its bright scales shimmered like copper. Garth gulped in fear, but the being spoke up, "Do not be afraid. I am sent by my creator, Eru, to guard the tree." Garth remembered this and with a bow, he said, "I remember." He then inquired, "What can I call you?" The dragon spoke in a growling tone, "My name is Ladin, and I am the guardian of Yggdrasil." Garth nodded, feeling content with this answer. He noticed a translucent barrier slowly forming around the tree, and at that moment, Lady Yavanna appeared in a flash of light. Quickly, Garth and his family knelt before her. Yavanna gestured for them to rise and said, "It is good to see that you have successfully planted the tree." Garth replied happily, "Everything is thanks to Lord Eru's blessing." Yavanna nodded, her tone turning serious. "I have come to warn you about the high towers. Be wary of them." Garth's seriousness grew as he remembered the recent alliance between his house and House Hightower through the marriage of his youngest son to Lymond Hightower's daughter. This union had finally absorbed the last and most significant rival, the Hightower Kingdom around Old Town, uniting the entire region as the Kingdom of the Reach. However, with Lady Yavanna's warning about the Hightowers, Garth and his son Garm became vigilant. Garm, curious about the situation since it involved his brother's marriage, questioned, "Is there a problem?" Yavanna sighed and responded, "Their ambition knows no bounds. The news of the emergence of Yggdrasil will likely spread everywhere. They will contact you and have their eyes on the fruits. They might even use their own flesh and blood to gain entrance to Yggdrasil." Garth and Garm nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Yavanna added, "I know they won't be the only ones attempting this. Many will try to seize the golden apples by force. That's why I have already chosen Garm's daughter, Mara, to be the next holder of the mark." Garm was pleased with the news, but Garm had doubts. He knew Durin II Durandon, also known as Durin the Devout, the son of Durin God's Grief, was not power-hungry. Garm wasn't worried about the Durrandon army coming here since Durin the Devout was a pacifist who wanted to avoid war. However, Lyon Lannister was a greedy man, and Garm knew he would likely come here with his forces. The situation was challenging, so Garm decided to seek help from Lady Yavanna. He asked, "Can we really fight off such forces?" Yavanna smiled and gestured towards Laden, saying, "Laden will help you. Since they are aiming for the tree, he will be your ally." Garth and Garm understood Yavanna's message. She was warning them not to use Laden as a weapon of war. His purpose was to guard Yggdrasil and perhaps assist in protecting the Reach to some extent. Garth and his son nodded as Yavanna disappeared. Garth immediately issued a command, "Son, prepare the army. I am certain we will have visitors soon." Chapter 12. Call the generals and advisor. Garth's voice echoed with authority as he addressed his son. Garm, fueled by a mix of determination and concern, acknowledged his father's command and quickly set about mobilizing their forces. Messengers were dispatched throughout the kingdom to assemble the army, and preparations for potential conflict were made. As predicted, stories and rumors about a magical tree in the Reach began to spread across Westeros. Tales circulated of its enchanted golden fruits that granted great strength and immortality. Meanwhile, Garth himself contemplated the situation, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He knew that defending Yggdrasil and its golden apples was of paramount importance. The fruits held immense power and were coveted by many, including the ambitious House Hightower and, potentially, Lyon Lannister. As they made their preparations, Garth realized that their approach had to be twofold. While they needed to fortify their defenses and be ready for a possible confrontation, they also had to explore diplomatic avenues. Avoiding unnecessary bloodshed and forging alliances could potentially safeguard Yggdrasil without resorting to full-scale conflict. Garth and his son Garm successfully established contact with Stoike Stark, the King of the North and son of Bren the Builder, as well as King Eldon Dane of Dorne. Together, they forged an alliance in preparation for the impending war. After all three are bonded over their vision of Lord Eru. Garth summoned his advisors, wise men and women who had served his family for generations, to discuss their next steps. They delved into potential strategies to ensure the safety of Yggdrasil and the Reach. Ideas such as strengthening existing alliances, seeking support from neighboring kingdoms, and exploring alternative paths to reach a peaceful resolution were considered. Among these fellow lords and lattice were Lord Hightower raised a question, breaking the silence. "My king, I am curious to know where you acquired such magical seeds and the beast." Garth and Garm anticipated this inquiry, knowing that all the lords had witnessed Laden and Yggdrasil. Garm, his face stoic, replied, "It was a gift from Lord Eru." Garm revealed his mark and continued, "Lady Yavanna personally selects one from our family. Only that chosen individual can approach the tree, pluck the fruits without hindrance from the barrier, or face the wrath of the Guardian." The revelation brought shock and envy to many of the lords. Garth added, "Lord Eru was pleased with how House of Gardner provided sustenance to the defenseless and healed them during the long night. As a result, House Gardner established a tradition of donating food to the poor and offering healing services." Though greedy, Lord Hightower was not foolish. He had heard about the tree's formidable defenses from his daughter, realizing that only the main family could breach the barrier. Moreover, the fearsome beast Laden stood guard, presenting an additional obstacle. Lymond harbored hopes that his daughter would bear a child who would be chosen by Lady Yavanna. However, those dreams were soon shattered when Lady Yavanna selected Garm's daughter. Only one individual is chosen every generation, and rumors began to circulate that harming Lady Yavanna's chosen one would bring a terrible curse. Lymond gritted his teeth and turned his thoughts to other matters. Meanwhile, William Lannister, son of Lon the Cunning, became consumed by greed upon hearing about the magical fruit. He orchestrated an army to launch an attack on the Reach. Chapter 13. In the midst of the war between King Garm, Stoike Stark, King Eldon Dane, and the Lannister army, an unexpected turn of events occurred. The skies darkened as the massive form of the bewildered beast, a colossal dragon-like creature, soared above the battlefield. With its immense size and powerful ice breath, the bewildered beast unleashed devastation upon the Lannister forces. Its freezing breath turned the ground into treacherous ice, rendering the Lannisters' movements slow and cumbersome. The sight of the bewildered beast struck fear into the hearts of the Lannister soldiers, as they found themselves struggling to counter this unexpected and overwhelming force. Stoike exclaimed with a mix of awe and happiness, "For the Alliance, charge!" Eldon Dane brandished his sword, its blade emanating a faint glow with each enemy he vanquished. Garm, matching the fervor of his companions, called out, "Guardian of Yggdrasil, grant us your mighty strength." As the ground shook and from the depths of the earth, Ladin, the guardian of the golden apples, emerged with a roar that shook the very foundations of the battlefield. This mighty dragon, with multiple heads and scales that shone like gold, wreaked havoc upon the Lannister army. Each had unleashed a deadly venomous breath, poisoning those unfortunate enough to be caught in its path. Ladin's ferocious attacks and impenetrable scales proved to be a formidable obstacle for the Lannister forces, causing chaos and disarray among their ranks. The arrival of the bewildered beast and Ladin turned the tide of the war. Their combined might, coupled with the strategic brilliance of King Garm, Stoic Stark, and King Eldon Dane, overwhelmed the Lannister army. The soldiers of Reach, the North, and Dorne fought with renewed vigor and determination, inspired by the awe-inspiring presence of these legendary creatures. Garm yelled in vigor, "For the Alliance!" As the battle raged on, the bewildered beast and Ladin became symbols of hope and strength for the allied forces. Their mere presence instilled a sense of fear in the hearts of their enemies, causing many Lannister soldiers to falter and flee. Ultimately, the combined forces of Reach, the North, and Dorne, bolstered by the aid of the bewildered beast and Ladin, emerged victorious. The Lannister army, outmatched and overwhelmed, was forced to retreat. King Lon, recognizing the futility of further resistance, surrendered to the allied forces, bringing an end to the war. The kingdoms of Reach, Dorne, and the North maintained a strong alliance for the next 100 years. However, Reach and Dorne began to experience significant progress and development, whereas the North made only minor advancements due to their stubborn nature. Even Stoic, the ruler of the North, had to exert considerable effort to persuade the lords to engage in trade activities. As Eru observed the situation, a smile played on his lips as he pondered, "Now, the only remaining issue is the Undulls." He turned his attention to Ulmo, Surya, Mandos, and Yavanna, who patiently awaited his orders. Addressing them, he inquired, "What are the issues regarding the faith of the Seven and the Red Priests in Essos?" Ulmo was the first to respond, saying, "The Water Priests and Priestesses have been steadily gaining influence and numbers, leading to conflicts with the followers of the faith of the Seven and LOTR. However, our side has emerged victorious from these clashes." Eru let out a thoughtful hum, and Mandos interjected, "The faith of the Seven has been imparting visions to their followers and helping them build an army. It seems they are planning to move to another area to gain followers." Eru muttered, "So it begins." With the impending challenges ahead, Eru formulated plans to aid the North by forging a human avatar who would align with their cause and provide assistance during the forthcoming arduous times. Eru summoned ethereal energies, channeling them through a celestial conduit. The divine essence coalesced, forming a brilliant luminescence that danced and swirled, gradually assuming a tangible shape. From the ethereal mist emerged the unmistakable figure of Vlad Tepes, a perfect human vessel meticulously crafted by Eru's divine touch. The avatar stood tall, exuding an aura of power and wisdom, a harmonious fusion of the deity's boundless essence and the mortal form of Vlad Tepes. He has fair skin, amber eyes and red eyeliner on the lower lids of his eyes, and mostly short dark brown hair with a longer fringe on the right side of his face and amber tips on the tip on this hair. There is one section of his hair on the back of his head that is waist length instead of being cut short. Eru took the form of Vlad Tepes and became friends with young Theon Stark, or the Hungry Wolf, the only true Stark after Bran the Builder, Stoic Stark, in the future Cregan Stark and Arya Stark. Chapter 14. During that era of Stoic, Garm and Eldon, there were discussions among about the education of heirs, which led to the creation of schools in each country. They had the basic gist, but Eru gave them the ideas for them through dreams. The main purpose was to ensure the production of new healers, teachers, merchants, and more. The Reach took a greater interest in healing, commerce, and education, while Dorne and the North focused on the commerce and warrior route. Unknowingly, this had an interesting effect of curbing the influence of the Maesters in the future. As time went on, Stoic's grandson gradually ascended the throne. Meanwhile, Eru, having taken the form of Vlad Tepes, found himself in Winterfell, the North. He could observe that the North was progressing at a slower rate compared to Dorne or the Reach. Eru recognized similarities between the North and Russia as well as Slavic Eastern Europe. On the other hand, Dorne had resemblances to Spain and Portugal, and last but not least, the Reach was similar to France. In a rowdy atmosphere, the mead hall in the North was filled with northerners of all shapes and sizes, reveling in their merriment. The air was thick with laughter, clinking glasses, and the aroma of strong spirits. At the large wooden table in the center, Theon Stark, a warrior from the Stark lineage, sat surrounded by a group of boisterous northerners, ready for a night of indulgence. Theon Stark, with long, dark brown hair, stood at an impressive height of about 6 feet and 2.5 inches, boasting a toned, muscular build. Clad in his formidable armor, he lifted a massive drinking goblet filled to the brim with frothy golden mead. Raising it high above his head, his eyes gleamed with excitement. Having successfully defeated an iron-born raiders, Theon yelled out, "To victory, my friends! May our spirits be lifted, and our tales be told for ages to come." The northerners cheered and raised their own drinking vessels, joining Theon in a resounding toast. The northerners yelled back, "To victory!" Theon's eyes met those of his companions, and with a mischievous grin, he brought the drinking goblet to his lips. Tipping his head back, he chugged down the mead, his throat working like a well-oiled machine. The northerners erupted into thunderous applause, impressed by their leader's drinking prowess. As the horn emptied, Theon slammed it down on the table with a mighty thud, foam spilling onto his beard. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, a satisfied grin stretching across his face. Theon yelled, "Another round, my friends. Let our mugs never run dry." The mead hall erupted into laughter and cheers as the northerners refilled their glasses, eager to match Theon's display of strength and revelry. The night carried on with the thunderous sounds of mugs clashing together, stories being shared, and the occasional song rising above the din. Thark Glower, a fearsome warrior known for his lightning-fast strikes, stood tall amidst the celebration, his laughter echoing through the hall. Theon's eyes scanned the mead hall, catching sight of a solitary figure sitting in the corner. Intrigued, he turned to his trusted friend, Thark Glower, a valiant warrior of the northerners, who sat beside him. Theon frowned and questioned, "Thark, do you know who that stranger is, drinking alone in the corner?" Thark followed Theon's gaze and squinted at the mysterious figure, clad in a cloak of shadows. Thark recognized him and answered, "Ah, that would be Vlad Tepes. A traveling swordsman, he arrived in the north a few weeks ago. I heard he saved Lady Manderly's carriage from thieves. Lord Manderly speaks highly of his remarkable swordsmanship." Theon's interest piqued, and he leaned closer to Thark, his eyes filled with curiosity. He noticed that the man possessed a unique blade, one unfamiliar to him. Theon hummed and said, "Vlad Tepes, you say? Maybe we should make friends with such a fine warrior." Theon took a sip of his mead, his eyes glinting with excitement. Thark, knowing his friend well, replied, "Perhaps you could approach him and find out for yourself. But be cautious, Theon." Theon nodded, acknowledging Thark's advice, and with a determined look on his face, he rose from his seat. Theon Stark walked purposefully toward the corner where Vlad Tepes sat, positioned himself opposite to him, and with an excited tone, said, "Hello, I am Theon Stark, King of the North, also known as the Hungry Wolf." Vlad Inte smiled and thought, "That was easier than I thought." This was the start of not just a beautiful friendship, but also a new house, the House of Tepes. Chapter 16, Vlad vs. Theon Stark. Vlad Tepes and Theon Stark got along easily, it didn't take them long to become best of friends. While Theon Stark and Vlad Tepes stood in a grand hall, surrounded by onlookers eager to witness the fitting of their swords. The air was charged with anticipation as the two warriors prepared to showcase their formidable weapons. Theon Stark unsheathed his hand-and-a-half sword, the engraved glyph for fire in the ancient language, Breezinger, catching the light as it gleamed on the blade and scabbard. The dark blue scabbard, adorned with a leaf-shaped steel cap, complemented the lighter iridescent blue blade. Cable-like patterns intertwined within the blade, adding a touch of intricacy to its design. The flame-like pattern marked the transition between the soft spine and the hard edges, symbolizing the sword's deadly prowess. Vlad Tepes followed suit, drawing his katana from the Tengu forest. The sword seemed to capture the very essence of the flickering torchlight, emanating an ethereal glow. Crafted from demon steel and reminiscent of the katana featured in the movie 47 Ronin, this weapon was a testament to both beauty and lethality. Its shining blade reflected the room's light, promising deadly precision with every strike. The hilt, carefully wrapped in black leather strips, offered Vlad a comfortable grip that felt like a natural extension of his hand. Metal bird claws adorned the guard of Vlad's katana, signifying his mastery over the blade. The same motif was repeated on the sheath, which was securely fastened to his waist by thick black cotton string. As a master of the blade, Vlad knew that the katana's sharpness would respond to his skill, allowing him to achieve unparalleled precision and effectiveness in combat. The room fell silent as the two warriors brandished their swords, their distinct characteristics reflecting their unique personalities and fighting styles. Theon Stark's Briesinger, with its engraved glyphs and flame-like patterns, evoked a sense of power and elemental fury. Vlad Tepes' katana, crafted from demon steel and adorned with symbolic bird claws, exuded elegance and deadly grace. With a solemn nod, the fitting ceremony began. The warriors held their swords aloft, their gazes locked in a silent understanding. These weapons, extensions of their very beings, were about to be put to the test in the crucible of battle. As the name Briesinger resounded through the hall, Theon's sword burst into a brilliant blue flame, illuminating the room with its fiery presence. The onlookers gasped in awe, witnessing the power and magic infused within the sword. Vlad Tepes, in response, channeled his mastery over his katana, infusing it with his own strength and expertise. The blade seemed to hum with anticipation, its edge growing sharper as it recognized the skill of its wielder. The room was filled with a palpable energy, as if the very air crackled with the anticipation of the clash between these formidable warriors. Vlad and Theon faced each other, their eyes locked in a fierce battle of determination. Vlad gripped his katana tightly, his muscles taut and ready to strike. Theon, with his sword at the ready, exuded a quiet confidence as he prepared to meet his adversary head-on. Without a moment's hesitation, Vlad lunged forward, his katana slicing through the air with deadly precision. Theon skillfully parried each strike, his blade meeting Vlad's with calculated precision. The clash of metal echoed through the air as sparks erupted from their weapons, illuminating the intensity of their struggle. Vlad's movements were swift and calculated, his strikes aimed to overwhelm his opponent. But Theon, with his agile footwork and honed reflexes, managed to evade Vlad's attacks with ease. He countered with a series of swift, well-placed strikes, testing Vlad's defenses and seeking an opening. As the fight progressed, their movements became a symphony of blade and steel. Vlad's katana danced through the air, weaving a tapestry of danger, while Theon's sword responded in kind, matching Vlad's every move with precision and skill. Their fight was a testament to their mastery of their respective weapons. With a fluid motion, Vlad executed a series of rapid slashes, his katana a blur of deadly arcs. Theon, however, anticipated his opponent's every move, expertly deflecting and countering each attack. The clash between their swords intensified, the force behind their strikes threatening to shatter the air itself. Both fighters displayed remarkable resilience, refusing to yield an inch. Their determination and unwavering focus propelled them forward, pushing their bodies and minds to their limits. Each strike held the weight of their respective strengths and experiences, intertwining in a dance of skill and sheer willpower. Theon saw an opening, a split-second opportunity. He lunged forward, his sword aiming for Vlad's exposed flank. But Vlad, sensing the danger, swiftly pivoted, narrowly avoiding Theon's strike. He retaliated with a powerful thrust, his katana inches away from Theon's defense. The clash of their weapons caused Theon's muscles strained as he held off Vlad's assault, determination etched upon his face. Meanwhile, Vlad's eyes gleamed with a mixture of ferocity and focus, his movements relentless. The fight reached its crescendo, their swords moving at blinding speed. Each combatant searched for a weakness, a moment of vulnerability in the other. The silence that followed was filled with mutual respect. Both fighters understood the depth of skill and resilience they had witnessed in each other. They lowered their weapons, acknowledging the other's strength. Though the fight had ended, the impact of their clash would resonate within them for years to come. With a nod of respect, they parted ways, carrying the memory of their battle as a testament to their prowess and the unyielding spirit of the warriors they were. The fitting ceremony concluded, and the swords were sheathed once more, their power contained but not diminished. Theon Stark and Vlad Tepes stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. These swords, with their unique designs and mystical qualities, were more than mere weapons. They were embodiments of the warrior spirits. They both sat down, while Theon panting heavily after giving his all in the fight, while he noticed Vlad appeared completely unfazed. Theon couldn't help but question, "You didn't go all out, did you?" Vlad simply smiled in response, causing Theon to let out a sigh. He had witnessed Vlad effortlessly dispatch multiple opponents with a single swing of his sword before, so he couldn't be mad at him for holding back. Curiosity got the better of him, and he asked, "What sword style do you use?" Vlad's smile widened as he answered, it's called Hiten Mitsurujiryu sword style, created by my teacher. This style is exclusively passed down from teacher to student. Thean hummed in acknowledgement and replied, I can tell it's an amazing sword style, and it seems tailor-made for your sword. Internally, Vlad couldn't help but smirk, thinking, you haven't seen anything yet. While Thean was curious about the sword, since no ordinary sword could take continuous strikes from breezing like that. So he questioned, what is that sword made of? Vlad smiled and answered, our ancestor was blessed by the Lord Mandos. If we pass a certain requirement, Lord Mandos will gift a sword. It is absurdly sharp blade, but only in the hands of a brave and skillful warrior. In the hands of a coward, they become completely dull. Thean was in awe, while he then took out his sword and said, this belonged to my ancestor, who took part in the long night. As you saw before, the sword lights up in flames when we call out its name. Vlad smiled and replied, it is an amazing sword. Thean then laughed and said, now let's drink some good old mead and celebrate. Vlad smiled, while he knew the war with Undulls will begin soon. Chapter 17, Gods of Valyria. Original gods. Also Valyrians at first used their original names but soon started changing their names to fit their convenience. Eru, creator of all. Ulmo or Caryxes, god of the sea, twin of Meryxes. Surya or Galathox, god of fire, stars, moon, sun, and the dawn, rival of Meryxes. Anubis or Baal-Ryan, god of death and the underworld. Osiris, god of tremendous kindness and cared immensely, fertility, agriculture, the afterlife, the dead, resurrection, life, and vegetation. Horus, god of the sky. Set, god of storm, disorder, violence, and desert. Nephthys, goddess of protection. Hathor or Malaise, goddess of love and fertility. Vagar, Astarte and Anat, sister goddesses of war. Ta or Vermithor, god of smiths, crafts, and artisans. Fake or empty names created by Valyrians. Erex, god of law, order, justice, governance, and strength. Agarax, god of all creatures that walk, run, swim, or fly. Creator of the first dragon. Meryxes, goddess of the sky, twin of Caryxes. Shrikos, goddess of beginnings, endings, transitions, and doorways. Syrax, god of wine, fruitfulness, parties, festivals, madness, chaos, drunkenness, vegetation, and ecstasy. Tessarion, goddess of music, arts, knowledge, healing, plague, prophecy, poetry, beauty, and archery. Tyraxes, goddess of reason, wisdom, intelligence, skill, peace, warfare, and battle strategy. Vermax, god of boundaries, travel, communication, trade, language, and writing. Chapter 18, Creation of Valyrian Gods. Eru assumed his godly form, contemplating the creation of additional deities to aid him in managing the growing number of followers and the imminent emergence of Valyria. Thus, he focused his powers on fashioning new gods specifically for Valyria. Ulmo, Surya, Mandos, and Yavanna observed the unfolding scene with great interest, as these were their younger siblings. Using his abilities, Eru molded these new beings to be taller than mortals, their circulatory systems flowing with pure, glowing liquid gold instead of blood. They possessed a towering height, ranging from 8 to 10 feet or even taller. In their true forms, these gods appeared as metallic, humanoid, animal-like beings. While in this form, their powers increased tenfold. They could effortlessly shift between their human disguises and their true forms at will. Soon, all the newly created gods appeared before Eru. Set possessed a striking appearance with a commanding, towering stature that demanded attention. Adorned in intricate gold and black armor that shimmered under the sun, symbolizing his godly status and dominance, his muscular physique was accentuated. His piercing eyes, glowing with an otherworldly intensity, hinted at the darkness within him. Nephthys was a woman of slender and graceful figure. Her distinctive feature was a headdress shaped like a house or palace, representing her role as a protector of the deceased. Adorned with hieroglyphs or symbols associated with mourning and the afterlife, the headdress emphasized her connection to these realms. Horus possessed striking features, particularly his piercing, luminous blue eyes radiating wisdom and determination. His regal yet approachable expression reflected his benevolent nature as a guardian and protector. Hathor's physical appearance was enchanting and alluring. She possessed a radiant and statuesque figure, exuding an aura of sensuality and elegance. Her attire consisted of flowing, ornate robes in vibrant colors, highlighting her divine nature and graceful movements. Elaborate jewelry, such as necklaces, bracelets, and earrings adorned with precious gems and intricate designs, emphasized her status as the goddess of beauty. Astarte appeared as a regal figure wearing a crown or headdress adorned with symbols of her power. Anat, the goddess of war and violence, possessed a strong and athletic figure, embodying the raw power and determination of a warrior. Her presence exuded ferocity and prowess in battle. Anubis had a towering figure that exuded a sense of mystique and authority. He possessed a lean and muscular build, implying agility and strength. His unmistakable jackal head featured pointed ears and a long, slender snout. Often depicted with glowing or otherworldly eyes, Anubis conveyed an air of wisdom and knowledge beyond mortal comprehension. Osiris stood tall and imposing, radiating an aura of wisdom and authority. Usually depicted in human form, he adorned himself in ornate robes or regal attire, reflecting his divine status. Vibrant colors, often incorporating shades of green and gold, symbolized growth, rebirth, and the wealth of the land. Isis possessed a captivating and regal figure, her flowing robes adorned in vibrant colors like blue or white, symbolizing purity and spirituality. Intricate patterns and symbols associated with magic and the natural world embellished her garments, representing her connection to both realms. All of them spoke in unison, addressing Eru as Father. Eru smiled warmly and said, "I have some new tasks to assign to your siblings, and I believe you can assist them." Having already bestowed appropriate domains and duties upon them, Eru turned his gaze to Horus and said, "Horus, I want you to keep a watchful eye on the shepherd groups living in the shattered peninsula extending south from Essos into the Summer Sea." Horus placed his hand over his chest and responded, "I shall carry out your command, Father." Next, Eru directed his attention to Set and said, "Set, I want you to keep a vigilant eye over the deserts of Westeros and Essos. The arrival of the Undals is imminent, and Dorne must be protected. You can work together with Astarte and Anat." Though Eru felt a twinge of regret for providing Dorne with only a bloodline and sword, he knew Set's presence would compensate for it. Set nodded solemnly and replied, "As you command, Father." Astarte and Anat nodded in agreement, while Nephthys prepared to accompany her husband. Eru then assigned Anubis a new responsibility, saying, "Anubis, I task you with assisting your brother Mandos in governing the realm of the dead." Anubis bowed respectfully and responded, "As you wish, my creator." Turning his attention to Osiris, Isis, and Hathor, Eru delegated specific duties pertaining to their domains. Observing each of them vanish to fulfill their respective roles, Eru felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that his newly appointed gods would dutifully carry out their tasks. Chapter 20, Undal's Invasion. A race of men from Essos, the Undals, crossed the narrow sea in numerous ships and made landfall in the Vale of Arryn. Under the banner of the Faith of the Seven, Undals first landed in the Fingers and attacked the first men living in the Vale. They burnt out the weirwood groves, hacked down the faces that they came across. Everywhere they proclaimed the triumph of the Seven over the old gods. A hill, now known to the Westerosi as High Heart, was sacred to the children of the forest. There, the Undal king Ereg the Kinslayer cut down the children's grove of 31 weirwoods. After several hundred years of war, the Undals conquered or married into the southern kingdoms of the first men and created their own. Malden IV Durrandon was a storm king of House Durrandon. During the Undal invasion of the Stormlands, as neither side defeated the other, Malden took an Undal maiden as his wife. Duranziv was born of this union. In Westerlands they initially resisted the coming of the Undals, but later as the Undals began moving into the Westerlands in larger numbers than in the time of Tybolt the Thunderbolt, Tyrion decided to arrange marriages for the more powerful Undal warchiefs with the daughters of the great local houses. Aware of Undal betrayals in the Vale, he also took the sons and daughters of the new Undal lords as wards and fosterlings to serve as pages and cupbearers, as well as hostages, at Casterly Rock. He was succeeded by his son, Gerald III Lannister, who continued Tyrion's policies. New houses formed by the intermarriages included. Gerald died without male issues, thus a council Cronwyd his only daughter's husband, Ser Joffrey Lyddon, who took the Lannister name and became the first Undal to rule Casterly Rock. Houses Brax, Drox, Jast, Kindle, Lefford, Marbrand, Perrin, Sarsfield, and Serret. In contrast to most kings of First Men origin, the support of the Undals allowed the kings of the Rock to expand their power. The Gardeners initially fortified their kingdom during the coming of the Undals to Westeros, but they eventually let loose Leyden on them, which resulted in crushing defeat from the Undals group. Only then the smart ones in the group realized the whole thing is not going the way their gods proclaimed. They found out the old gods were much more powerful and nothing like Faith of Seven told them to be. So these groups joined the Reach peacefully, since they wanted to learn more about these powerful old gods, and when they did, most of them renounced Faith of Seven. While Dorn was, let's just say, more passionate about their faith towards old gods, also because the blessing of Eru Dorn had acquired a striking physical feature, reddish-orange skin that glowed like embers in the sunlight. It was as if the gods had painted their very essence onto their flesh, marking them as chosen ones. To honor this sacred gift, the Dorn began to adorn themselves with intricate tattoos, inked in dark red, that told the stories of their social standing and important life experiences. Each tattoo held a special meaning, a testament to the trials and triumphs they had faced. The designs were carefully chosen, reflecting the wearer's achievements, lineage, and personal growth. From birth to death, these tattoos evolved, telling a captivating tale of their lives, etched upon their vibrant skin. The reddish-orange hue of their skin became a symbol of pride and unity among the people of Dorn. It represented their unwavering faith, their connection to the divine, and their bond with each other. It was a mark of distinction that set them apart from the rest of the world, a testament to their deep-rooted spirituality and the harmonious relationship they shared with the old gods. This strong belief caused them fight the Undulls for tooth and nail. They won their battle, but news spread about two giant snakes attacking the Undulls. This will be revealed 2 chapters later. It will more clear and described battle. In the Winter Council chambers, all the Northern Lords had convened to discuss the impending Undull invasion. Theon Stark, now older with a distinguished beard, had matured and become wiser over the years, thanks in large part to his trusted friend and advisor, Vlad Tepes. Together, they formed a formidable team, guiding the kingdom through challenging times. As Theon studied the map depicting the Undul army's advance towards the north, he voiced his concerns to the gathered lords. "So they are coming for us now?" Lord Thark Glover responded, "Yes, word has it that they are amassing their forces and marching north." Murmurs filled the chamber as Lord Umber interjected, "Did the southern lords truly allow these people to join their ranks?" Some grumbled in agreement as Theon let out a sigh and replied, "Indeed, many of them have fully integrated, even in regions like the Westerlands and Stormlands, adopting the faith of the Seven." This news greatly perturbed most of the lords, who regarded the Undulls as cowards, disrespecting their ancestors and the ancient gods. Lord Bolton spoke up, sharing a surprising revelation. "I've heard that King Grom of the Reach has permitted these Undulls to reside within his lands." This announcement sparked astonishment among the attendees, as the Reach was known as one of the strongest kingdoms with a deep-rooted belief in the ancient gods. To clear the air and dispel any misunderstandings, Vlad decided to address the council. "I received a message from King Grom himself. It appears that he welcomed the peaceful Undulls who sought to renounce the faith of the Seven and distance themselves from this war." Vlad went on to explain that during their encounters, a group of Undulls was visited by the incarnations of the Seven, who crowned their first king, Huger of the Hill. While some Undulls were initially reluctant, they succumbed to the pressure exerted by the majority. The so-called faith of the Seven had promised them dominion over all of Westeros and an easy victory. However, upon arrival, they realized that the conquest was far from easy, losing thousands upon thousands of men in futile attempts to subjugate the Reach. This, combined with their discovery of the blessed kingdoms and people devoted to the ancient gods, led them to feel betrayed by the faith of the Seven. Vlad concluded, "It seems that the wiser and more peace-seeking Undulls have renounced the faith of the Seven and aligned themselves with Dorne or the Reach. Those who are now heading our way are the more fanatical ones, seeking to conquer everything in the name of the Seven." While most of the Northern Lords felt that was okay, but some like Bolton felt the Reach shouldn't have taken them in. But Eru or Vlad knew these Undulls won't cause any issue. Every one of them will fully renounce the Seven in the future. So he didn't find any issue with the whole thing. While Theon broke his thought, "We should ready for the coming battle. We will never allow them to destroy our faith and beliefs." All the lords shouted in agreement, while Vlad looked at Theon in sadness, knowing his descendant would marry a Tully, who will not only try to build a sept in the heart of Winterfell but also try to convert many into faith of Seven fall lowers. He sighed and thought, "I never liked Catelyn, maybe I can change this whole thing." In a cruel twist of fate, the House of Lannister and the House of Durrandon discovered that their once fertile lands had become barren, leaving them in dire straits during the harsh winter years. The shocking revelation came to light during the solemn oath ceremony, when ethereal apparitions of their ancestors, such as Durrandon God's Grief and Lon the Clever, materialized to curse them for the destruction they had wrought upon their ancestral lands. Initially, both the House of Lannister and the House of Durrandon were bewildered by this turn of events. However, their ancestors soon elucidated that their misfortune was a consequence of their decision to abandon the old gods and embrace the faith of the Seven. By forsaking the ancient deities, they unknowingly forfeited the blessings bestowed upon their lands, thus inviting the wrath of the divine powers that had once nurtured their domain. Chapter 21, Unduls vs. North. A/N. I was mostly thinking of adopting a normal child and blood adopting him, thus the House or Teeps bloodline would go on. I did not have any love interests planned during this time. The House of Teeps will have creeds to follow, that would be strict, and if they do not use their powers correctly or go against North, their powers will disappear. Also, if you dislike it, please give us suggestions. Lon the Clever and Durin Godsgrief, the founders of House Lannister and House Durrandon respectively, would not have approved of many of their descendants for centuries. Lon the Clever, renowned for his cunning and wit, held high standards for his Lannister progeny. He esteemed intelligence and shrewdness, traits that he himself possessed. Lon only found Tywin Lannister, Tywin and Tyrion worthy of his approval, recognizing their strategic minds and their ability to uphold Lannister dominance. Despite Tyrion's physical limitations, his sharp intellect and cleverness would garner Lan's appreciation. As for Durin Godsgrief, the legendary founder of House Durrandon, he would likely be dismayed by the path his descendants chose in the following centuries. Durin viewed his successors as unworthy and foolish, believing they had tarnished the family name. In his eyes, they would be deemed as unworthy individuals who failed to uphold his esteemed legacy. In the midst of a chilling winter, a clash of kingdoms was brewing in the realm of Westeros. King Theon Stark, a seasoned ruler of the North, stood resolute, ready to defend his ancestral lands against the invading Unduls led by their fearless King Aereg. As the drums of war echoed across the snowy landscapes, King Theon gathered his loyal bannermen and warriors in the courtyard of Winterfell. Clad in fur-lined armor, he addressed his men with an unwavering determination in his eyes. "My loyal subjects, the time has come to defend our homes and honor. The Unduls march upon our lands, seeking to claim what is rightfully ours. But we shall not yield. We shall fight with valor and protect the legacy of our ancestors." Cheers erupted from the ranks, filling the air with a spirit of unity and resolve. Theon's trusted advisor, Vlad Tepes, stood at his side, offering strategic counsel and bolstering the morale of the troops. Meanwhile, warlord Argos Sevaean Star, a charismatic and ambitious leader, rallied his Undul forces, driven by a fervent desire to spread the influence of the faith of the Seven throughout the realm. With a mighty host at his back, he urged his men forward, proclaiming, "The time has come to claim the North for the Seven. We shall show them the might of our faith and the power of our united armies." The clash of steel and the thunderous pounding of hooves marked the beginning of a brutal conflict. The Northmen, fiercely loyal to their king, fought with an indomitable spirit, their icy breath mingling with battle cries. Theon, a seasoned warrior himself, led his troops from the front, his sword cleaving through the ranks of the Unduls with precision and fury. Yet, the Unduls proved to be formidable opponents, skilled in both the art of war and the zealous fervor of their faith. Argos, a cunning strategist, orchestrated relentless assaults, testing the resolve of the northern forces. Each engagement saw bloodshed and loss on both sides, as the bitter winter seemed to mirror the ferocity of the conflict. The war raged on, with sieges, skirmishes, and decisive battles shaping the fate of the North. Theon Stark finally used the Bewilder Beast, which completely destroyed with its icy breath freezing armies easily. Unduls gradually established communication with the Westerlands and Stormlands, ultimately joining forces to launch an attack on the North. Though hesitant, they recognized the necessity of acquiring resources for the impending winter. Warlord Argos of the Unduls had descended into complete insanity, convinced that his gods had not betrayed him and that this setback was merely a test. One of his advisors spoke up tentatively, "My lord, this war is taking a toll on us. Perhaps we should consider ending it." Argos fixed his gaze upon the advisor, his eyes gleaming with madness, and bellowed, "No. We shall press on. This is a trial bestowed upon us by the faith of the Seven. We must persist and illuminate these savages with the light of the Seven." The fanatical followers erupted in applause and shouts of approval, while those who had lost faith could only despair at the prospect of the war continuing. Argos declared, "We shall lure their army and that abominable creature away, leaving them vulnerable, and unleash our full might upon the North." The plan seemed promising, prompting the Storm King, ruler of the Westerlands, to allocate additional soldiers to aid Argos in his endeavor. The ruse orchestrated by Warlord Argos, leading a fake attack to lend credibility to their deception, successfully unfolded as planned. However, as Argos's true army marched toward the north, they unexpectedly encountered a small group led by the enigmatic leader, Vlad Tepes. Chapter 22, Vlad steps into battle. Vlad commanded his men, "Be ready." The men, though filled with a slight sense of fear, but there were true northerners, and they steeled themselves, preparing for the battle of their lives. They understood the gravity of the situation, they could not allow these people to pass. They heard their commander's order, "Just make sure no one gets through, I will handle the rest." Confusion enveloped the ranks, but what they witnessed next left them utterly shocked. Vlad, clad in a striking black and red armor, moved with lightning speed, his every motion appearing as if he were teleporting from one spot to another. As he weaved through the chaos of the fight, his movements were so fluid and precise that it seemed as though time itself had frozen. His black garments billowed behind him, leaving a sculptural trail in his wake. The cloth, intricately designed and matching the colors of his armor, twisted and twirled, forming an ethereal tapestry of black and red. It cascaded through the air, defying gravity as if propelled by an unseen force. With his katana gripped firmly in his hand, Vlad unleashed a whirlwind of deadly slashes and precise strikes. His speed was unmatched, allowing him to swiftly close the distance between himself and the enemy army. One of the northern army filled with awe by the old gods, "Look at Lord Vlad. He moves like a phantom." As he engaged his opponents, Vlad's swift movements, accompanied by the flowing cloth trail, created a mesmerizing illusion that he was the same person effortlessly navigating through the chaos of enemies. As he darted from one opponent to another, his motion blurred, leaving behind a continuous stream of sculptural cloth that connected his previous and current positions. The cloth trail of illusion collapsed gracefully when Vlad came to a halt, only to be summoned again as he continued his relentless assault. The enemies, caught off guard by his lightning-fast movements, struggled to keep up with his speed and precision. His movements became a mesmerizing dance of lethal precision. With every strike, he demonstrated his mastery of combat, swiftly dispatching his foes with calculated strikes and devastating blows. His black and red armor seemed to amplify his prowess, enhancing his speed and agility, while instilling fear in the hearts of those who dared to face him. This visual effect made it difficult for his adversaries to track Vlad's exact movements. The enemies would catch glimpses of him darting from one spot to another, but before they could react, they would find themselves facing an empty space. It was as if Vlad had seamlessly merged with his surroundings, becoming an elusive and phantom-like presence. "Undull Soldier 1 panicking yelled, "He's a demon. How can anyone move that fast?" The cloth trail, matching the colors of his black and red armor, played a crucial role in perpetuating this illusion. As Vlad moved, the cloth twisted and swirled, creating a dynamic visual spectacle that added to the confusion and disorientation of his opponents. It was almost impossible to discern where Vlad ended and the cloth began, blending seamlessly into one entity. Another Undull captain shouted in fear, "Strike him down. We can't let him get away." The enemies found themselves surrounded by a whirlwind of black and red, Vlad's every strike accompanied by the fluid dance of the cloth trail. They would swing their weapons at what they believed to be Vlad, only to find themselves striking empty air or colliding with the billowing cloth. The soldiers were frustrated and one of them yelled, "Where is he? I can't see his movements." Vlad's ability to create this illusion and maintain the seamless fluidity of his movements showcased his exceptional skill and mastery of combat. It not only added to his mystique but also served as a tactical advantage, keeping his enemies off balance and unable to predict his next move. As Vlad moved with blinding agility, his katana danced through the air, leaving a trail of severed limbs and falling adversaries in his wake. The black and red armor adorned his body, providing both protection and flexibility as he weaved through the chaos of the battlefield. With each swing of his katana, Vlad's movements became a blur, his strikes delivered with unparalleled precision. The enemy soldiers barely had time to react before they fell victim to the swift and lethal blade. Vlad's speed allowed him to engage multiple opponents simultaneously, evading their attacks effortlessly while striking with deadly accuracy. While son of Lord Manderley, Jorn Manderley was looking at the scene in shock, awe, and fear, but then he remembered Theon Stark telling the lords, "Vlad Tepes is blessed by the gods, you have not seen his powers yet." Many at the time thought it was just Theon Stark praising Vlad's sword skill and his intelligence. But now he knew this was what Theon Stark meant. Jorn Manderley muttered, "What? What is this?" Theon Stark was right about Vlad's powers. In the heat of the battle, Vlad appeared as a singular force, his movements and the cloth trail merging into one harmonious entity. It was an awe-inspiring display of agility, precision, and illusion, leaving his enemies bewildered and vulnerable to his lightning-fast attacks. Chapter 23, Note: I was not sure about the whole blood adoption route for Vlad's children. So now I am having ideas about putting an OC named Eliza Stark, younger sister of Theon Stark, as Vlad's love interest. She had striking features and athletic physique. She has a slender and toned figure, standing at around 5 feet 4 inches, 162 centimeters tall. She has black hair that falls past her shoulders in sleek, straight strands. Her eyes are a vibrant shade of gray. Basically picture Psylocke from X-Men Apocalypse movie. Also, I will update a new chapter tonight or tomorrow. Chapter 24, Lord Impaler. The Undul army, once unified and confident, now found themselves facing a lone warrior who moved faster than the eye could follow. Fear and panic spread among their ranks as they witnessed their comrades falling in rapid succession, their bodies sliced apart by Vlad's masterful swordplay. Vlad's katana was an extension of himself, an instrument of vengeance and justice. It glinted in the sunlight, each strike accompanied by the distinctive sound of metal meeting flesh. The enemy soldiers were helpless against his relentless onslaught, their weapons unable to match the speed and skill of Vlad. As the Undul soldiers witnessed the carnage unleashed by Vlad, their cries of desperation filled the air. "He is a demon," they yelled, their voices trembling with fear and disbelief. The sight of Vlad's swift movements and relentless assault left them paralyzed with terror, as they realized they were facing a force beyond their comprehension. Meanwhile, Vlad's fellow comrades, who had been watching the fight in awe, were inspired by his unparalleled skill and courage. They understood that they couldn't simply stand by and watch. Rallying their courage, Jorn yelled, "We must fight alongside Vlad." For the north, they joined the fight alongside Vlad, their hearts filled with determination to protect their land and stand by their leader. Together, they fought as a unified force, their weapons clashing with those of the enemy soldiers. Vlad's presence and unmatched skill served as a beacon of hope and strength for his comrades. His every move inspired them to fight with unwavering resolve, matching his speed and precision in battle. Amidst the chaos of the battlefield, the combined efforts of Vlad and his comrades proved unstoppable. The enemy soldiers were overwhelmed by their coordinated assault, unable to withstand the relentless onslaught. With Vlad leading the charge, they pushed forward, driving the enemy back with each strike, and reclaiming their ground inch by inch. The men of the north, who had once been unsure of their chances in this battle, now looked upon Vlad with newfound respect and admiration. They had witnessed the extraordinary power of their leader, the one they called the Demon. They understood that his prowess on the battlefield went beyond mere mortal abilities. One of the last surviving captains of the Undul army stood at the edge of the battlefield, his eyes wide with disbelief and despair. He watched as Vlad, like a specter of death, effortlessly cut through one person after another, his blade moving with deadly precision. The captain couldn't comprehend the sheer skill and ferocity displayed by his opponent. "What kind of monster have we provoked?" the captain muttered under his breath, his voice filled with a mix of fear and awe. He had never witnessed such relentless power and merciless determination. The sight of Vlad's swift movements and the lifeless bodies left in his wake shook the captain to his core. Desperation filled the air as the remaining soldiers, their spirits broken and their hopes dwindling, turned to their faith for salvation. Some dropped to their knees, clutching their holy symbols tightly, and began to pray fervently to the faith of the Seven, seeking divine intervention in their darkest hour. But the prayers went unanswered, and the silence that followed was deafening. The captain looked around, his eyes scanning the faces of his comrades, hoping for a glimmer of hope. Instead, he saw only the resigned expressions of soldiers who had come to accept their fate. It was in that moment, as the captain observed the silent pleas for help and the continued slaughter, that he realized the harsh truth: there would be no divine intervention, no miracle to save them from the relentless onslaught. Only silence and death remained. Tears welled up in the captain's eyes as he watched his men fall one by one, their lives extinguished without mercy. He felt the weight of their collective despair and understood that their prayers had been in vain. The once united and confident army had been shattered, reduced to nothing more than helpless pawns in the face of an unstoppable force. Then he saw sword flash and everything went black. By the time Vlad sheathed his katana, the enemy army lay defeated and countless others that lay scattered on the blood-stained ground, a testament to the merciless dance of death that had unfolded. The last remaining remnants of Undul soldiers were either injured too much to fight back or they were now broken and demoralized, their spirits crushed. Vlad assessed the condition of his men, relieved to see that they were unharmed. He then issued a stern command: fetch the stakes and impale these Undul soldiers upon them. Let this serve as a warning. Although the order caught some of his comrades by surprise, the sight was not entirely shocking to them. The Boltons, infamous for their cruel practices, had a reputation for flaying their enemies. The order struck some of his comrades with surprise, their expressions reflecting a mixture of hesitation and concern. Aware of their apprehension, Vlad took a moment to address their doubts. "We have to send a message, a strong one. These Unduls, driven by fanaticism, will not cease their aggression. Should they rally more Undul warlords from their lands, our people will be exposed to further attacks." His words resonated among the gathered warriors as they pondered the situation at hand. It became clear that a show of force was necessary, a brutal and unyielding act that would reverberate through the hearts of their enemies. Understanding the logic behind Vlad's strategy, his comrades reluctantly nodded in agreement, realizing the importance of striking fear into the hearts of the Unduls and deterring future assaults. With unified conviction, they set forth to carry out Vlad's command, recognizing the weight of their actions and the significance of their collective resolve. It was a grim reminder of the harsh realities of war and the sacrifices they were willing to make to safeguard their people and homeland. By the time Theon and his army arrived, he had defeated Argos, Seve and Star and quickly rushed to aid his friends, while what he saw did not shock him much, since Vlad had told him about his powers or blessing, while his men were shocked as Lord Umber shouted, "By old gods." Everyone saw Vlad sitting cross-legged in the midst of a vast, open field. The sun beat down on his face, casting long shadows across the land. Behind him stood the remnants of the once mighty army of Unduls, now reduced to lifeless figures, staked to the ground as a grim testament to Vlad's power. The air hung heavy with the scent of blood and decay, a constant reminder of the price paid for disobedience. The sky above was an expanse of vibrant blue, seemingly indifferent to the carnage below. It was a stark contrast to the macabre scene that unfolded on the earth. Jorn Manderley, who was reporting everything to Theon, while other lords close to him were in complete shock and some in fear and awe. Vlad's eyes narrowed as he studied the defeated impaled Unduls behind him. Some wore expressions of agony, frozen in eternal torment, while others bore faces twisted in terror. The sight of their once mighty army reduced to such a pitiful state sent shivers down the spines of those who witnessed it. While Theon, having heard everything from Jorn, grinned at his friend, a twisted mixture of excitement and cruelty danced in his eyes and muttered, "This will be a very powerful message indeed." He understood the impact that Vlad's merciless display would have on their enemies and the Unduls in Westeros, but Theon wanted more and saw an opportunity to instill fear in their hearts, to make them think twice before crossing into their lands again. While he also wanted the Unduls from Essos to feel the same fear and had plan, which he wanted to discuss with Vlad. Lord Bolton vowed not to anger this man, since he knew it would be the end of him and his house. A soft breeze rustled through the field, causing the grass to sway gently. Vlad closed his eyes, momentarily blocking out the gruesome tableau behind him, and on seeing Theon he walked towards him. In the silence, he could almost hear the whispers some of still alive mapled soldiers, their voices carried by the wind, pleading for mercy or seeking vengeance. But Vlad remained unmoved, unaffected by their pleas. Slowly, Vlad rose from his seated position, his commanding presence towering over the lifeless bodies. As Vlad walked away from the field, leaving the army of Unduls behind, his message was clear: anyone who crossed north would meet the same fate as those staked in the field, a fate worse than death itself. Crows and eagles, drawn by the scent of death, descended upon the battlefield. Their dark wings filled the sky as they circled above, cawing and screeching, ready to feast on the fallen warriors. The crows, with their glossy black feathers, landed first, hopping from one lifeless body to another. They pecked at the eyes, tore at the flesh, and picked clean the bones, their sharp beaks leaving behind only remnants of what was once human. Their raucous cries echoed through the field, a macabre symphony of death. Chapter 25, Notice. There may be some Sansa Stark bashing on the future, since her behavior in the first couple of episodes were not that great. Like Sansa, Robb and Bran were more Tully than Stark. So they will be not accepted by most of the ancestors, and only one they will fully accept is Arya. Also, these ancestors' approval has a huge importance in becoming an heir or future lord, so if somehow Sansa does get an opportunity in the future to be the Queen of North. But it will not work, since she was never fully accepted by Stark ancestors, so vassal lords will not approve of her status, and only one they will approve of is Arya, who will never want such a position. So naturally Starks will lose their status as protector of North, and it will be passed to House of Teeps, mainly because of reasons like Ned and Catelyn's stupid decision to build Septa and convert people to Faith of Seven. Chapter 26, Undulls vs. Dorn, Extra Chap. A/N, I have 2 images for the new female OC Eliza Stark. 1. Olivia Munn, Psylocke X-Men Apocalypse. 2. Kelly Overton, Christy Montero Tekken Movie. In Dorne, Marion Dane, the grandson of Eldon and the King of Dorne, had been engaged in a prolonged war against the Undul warlords. Their battles had been relatively successful, thanks in part to the harsh desert environment that favored the Dornish forces and their perceived blessings from Eru, enabling them to withstand the scorching climate effortlessly. While many celebrated their victories, doubts lingered among some who believed that Lord Eru favored the North and the Reach, gifting them magnificent beasts as guardians. However, Marion remained steadfast in his faith, unwavering in his belief in the gods. As the war continued, the Undulls began to outnumber Marion's forces, creating a growing concern. The Dornish army caught sight of the approaching enemy forces, prompting prayers to the gods for success in battle. It was at that moment that a howling windstorm suddenly swept in, seemingly emerging out of nowhere. Amidst the tumultuous winds, they discerned a peculiar sound, catching Marion's attention. He muttered, "The wind sounds alive." Drawing his sword, Dawn, Marion prepared himself for the imminent conflict. The entire army braced for the impending battle when their eyes turned toward a swirling sandstorm forming in the distance. Within the storm, Marion noticed movement, something rising from the sandy depths. It was a colossal black cobra, towering over them, its hiss carried by the gusting wind. The cobra's hood flared, poised to strike, and fear gripped Marion and his army. But then, to their astonishment, they witnessed a second cobra, this one white, rearing up beside the first. And to their amazement, there were figures mounted atop these serpentine beings. Anat and Astarte, 2 warrior goddesses, emerged from the storm. These exotic beauties, in their 20s, exuded an aura of power. Quick-tempered Astarte donned a wicked helmet adorned with bull horns, while calculating and sadistic Anat was clad in a panther skin, battle axe at the ready. Despite their wariness and fear, a voice reassured them, "Do not be afraid." Turning around, they beheld a colossal figure materializing from the sands. Before them stood a towering, metallic humanoid figure with a jackal head, emanating an aura of darkness and dominance. His crimson eyes blazed intensely, penetrating the shifting shadows around him. Dark gold accents adorned his metallic body, signifying regality and imposing stature. Some members of the army instinctively took a step back upon witnessing this menacing figure. However, to their surprise, the jackal-headed entity transformed into a human form. The transformed figure possessed a striking appearance, commanding attention with his towering stature. Clad in intricate gold and black armor that shimmered under the sun, symbolizing his godly status and dominance, he showcased a muscular physique. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity, hinting at the darkness within. Beside him stood a graceful woman, slender and elegant. She wore a headdress resembling a house or palace, signifying her role as a protector of the deceased. The headdress was adorned with hieroglyphs and symbols associated with mourning and the afterlife, underscoring her connection to these realms. Set, unfazed by their fear, spoke with conviction, "I am Set, the god of the desert, storms, disorder, and violence and the son of Eru. My father has sent me to aid you." Relief washed over the Dornish army upon hearing Set's words. As they turned their gazes, they witnessed the 2 colossal cobras launching themselves at the Undul army. With fangs bared like ivory scimitars, the cobras spewed streams of burning venom akin to napalm upon the retreating Undulls, incinerating them alive. Under the onslaught of the venomous assault, the Undul army crumbled, descending into chaos and disarray. The cobras, their serpentine forms undulating, slurped and reloaded venom, preparing to strike once more. With synchronized precision, they unleashed twin annihilating sprays, decimating every last Undul soldier in their path. Tur 27, Chapter 22 Bloody Wolf and Impaler. In an unprecedented move to instill fear in the hearts of the Undulls and protect the North from Undul from Essos, Theon Stark devised a daring plan. Accompanied by Vlad, his trusted ally, they set sail with a formidable fleet towards the distant lands of Essos. Their mission, to deliver a resounding message that would deter any future invasions. Upon reaching Essos, Theon Stark took a radical approach. He wanted to leave an indelible mark on the minds of the Undulls, ensuring they would think twice before setting foot on northern soil again. In a bold display of power, he commanded that the lifeless body of Argos Sebaean Stars, a prominent Undul leader, be prominently showcased on the prow of his ship. The sight of their fallen comrades served as a chilling reminder of the consequences of challenging the might of the North. Not content with a mere symbolic gesture, Theon and Vlad orchestrated a series of devastating raids and scorched a multitude of Undul villages. The Northmen unleashed their fury, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Hundreds upon hundreds of Unduls fell victim to their ruthless campaign, their lives cut short as a stark reminder of the northern forces' wrath. In a manner akin to Vlad's infamous tactics, Theon ordered the heads of the fallen invaders to be impaled on spikes, arranged in a grisly display of deterrence. The sight of these severed heads served as a haunting testament to the merciless nature of their adversaries. It sent a chilling message that any future attempts to invade the North would result in a similar fate. Theon Stark's fearsome reputation grew exponentially from these merciless acts. He became known as the Bloody Wolf, a name that echoed throughout the realms, a symbol of his unyielding resolve and unwavering determination to protect his people. Similarly, Vlad Tepes' unique powers, with his gruesome methods of punishment, acquired the epithet Vlad the Impaler, a name that struck terror into the hearts of those who heard it. The joint efforts of Theon Stark and Vlad had achieved their desired effect. The Unduls, upon hearing of the bloody campaign and witnessing the macabre displays, were gripped by fear and trepidation. The North had successfully established a reputation for ruthless defense, deterring any further incursions into their lands. As the celebration continued in North Winterfell Castle, the atmosphere was filled with joy and triumph. The victory against the Unduls had brought a sense of relief and pride to the people, and the castle echoed with laughter and music. On the Grand Throne, Theon Stark sat with his wife, Jaina Stark, by his side. They were a formidable couple, strong and respected leaders of Winterfell. To Jaina's right sat her son, Jason Stark, a young man with his father's stern gaze and his mother's grace. But it was Eliza Stark, Theon's younger sister, who caught the attention of many. She exuded a captivating aura, with her striking features and athletic physique. Standing at around 5 feet 4 inches, 162 centimeters tall, she possessed a slender and toned figure that hinted at her active lifestyle. Eliza's black hair cascaded down past her shoulders in sleek, straight strands, contrasting beautifully with her vibrant gray eyes. She possessed an enigmatic charm that drew people in, and her presence in the celebration did not go unnoticed. Vlad, a distinguished figure in his own right, found himself at the center of attention. As the rumors of his powers circulated among the lords, some saw an opportunity to strengthen their own positions by offering their daughters' hands in marriage. However, Vlad was cautious and kept his distance from the inebriated lords, politely declining their advances. In the midst of this spectacle, Vlad's eyes caught Eliza's subtle glances. Their gazes locked, and a silent understanding seemed to pass between them. Intrigued by her captivating presence, Vlad found himself equally drawn to Eliza, her beauty and enigmatic nature intriguing him. King Theon Stark stood before his loyal subjects, his gaze filled with a mix of admiration and respect as he addressed the gathered crowd. With a voice that carried authority, he spoke, "Today, we stand witness to a momentous occasion, a testament to valor and unwavering loyalty." Theon turned his attention to Vlad Tepes, whose unwavering dedication and formidable skills had proven invaluable to the North. Vlad stood tall, his eyes fixed upon his friend. "Vlad Tepes," Theon continued, his words resonating with weight, "your service to the North has been nothing short of extraordinary. Your prowess in battle, your unwavering resolve, and your strategic genius have earned you the respect and admiration of all who have fought alongside you." Theon's words were met with resounding applause and cheers from the assembled crowd, a testament to the impact Vlad had made on their lives and the collective consciousness of the North. "In recognition of your remarkable contributions," Theon declared, his voice carrying the weight of the crown he bore, "I hereby bestow upon you the highest honor that can be bestowed upon a warrior in these lands. From this day forth, you shall be known as Lord Vlad Tepes, the founder of House Tepes." As the words hung in the air, a wave of excitement and awe swept through the gathering. The honor bestowed upon Vlad was not merely a title, it represented the birth of a noble lineage, a legacy that would endure for generations to come. Theon stepped forward, a ceremonial pendant in hand, its design depicting a wolf, symbolizing Vlad's formidable skills and unwavering loyalty. With great reverence, he placed the pendant around Vlad's neck, signifying the official recognition of his new noble status. "Rise, Lord Vlad Tepes," Theon proclaimed, his voice filled with conviction. "May House Tepes stand as a bastion of strength, honor, and resilience in the North. May your legacy inspire future generations to protect and defend our land with the same unwavering dedication that you have shown." As Vlad rose to his feet, the crowd erupted into thunderous applause, a testament to the deep respect they held for him. He stood before them, a newly anointed noble, the founder of House Teeps, ready to carry the weight of his newfound responsibility and continue his unwavering commitment to the North. Celebration restarted and both Vlad and Eliza started interacting with each other. Unbeknownst to them, Theon, always observant and perceptive, noticed the silent exchange between Eliza and Vlad. A smile played on his lips as he realized the potential connection brewing between the two. He smiled and thought, "Oh, this is an interesting development." It had long been his desire to see his sister find love and happiness, and he could not think of a better match for her than Vlad. As the celebration continued, Theon's mind began to devise plans, envisioning a future where Eliza and Vlad would stand side by side. So he was already planning to set up meeting for both. So the seeds of a new love story were silently sown, waiting to blossom in the days to come. Chapter 28, Chapter 23. As the celebration at Winterfell reached its peak, with cheers and laughter echoing through the halls, a sudden flash of light illuminated the entire courtyard. The revelers gasped and shielded their eyes as the brilliant radiance coalesced into a majestic figure, emanating an aura of ancient power and wisdom. Eru, the creator, had arrived. Each person in the throne room, including King Theon Stark, instinctively bowed their heads in reverence. Theon, his voice filled with a mixture of surprise and humility, spoke, "Lord Eru, what can I do for you? Your presence here is an honor." As Eru surveyed the scene, he spoke with a voice that seemed to echo through both space and time, reaching the hearts of all those gathered. "Children of Iluvatar," he began, his voice gentle yet resonant, "I have come to witness your victory over the Undals and to bestow my blessings upon this land. You have endured many trials and tribulations," Eru continued, his gaze sweeping across the crowd, "and yet you have remained steadfast in the face of adversity. I have watched over you, and I am pleased with the courage and resilience you have shown." Theon's shock gave way to a sense of joy and gratitude. The lords and attendants present in the room shared a similar state of astonishment and elation. They understood the significance of this arrival and the blessings that would be bestowed upon their king. With a gentle wave of his hand, Eru blessed Theon Stark with the abilities of the wolf blood. "I provide you and your family with a blessing befitting your sigil, the dire wolf. These gifts shall aid you in your endeavors to safeguard the North." Theon's eyes widened in awe as Eru detailed the enhanced capabilities he would possess as a wolf blood. Heightened senses that surpassed human limitations, granting him the ability to detect scents, hear with exceptional clarity, and see in the dark. Superhuman stamina that allowed him to endure physical exertion beyond ordinary limits. Eola's, a connection with nature that would guide him in discovering others' whereabouts. The ability to transform into a wolf at will, harnessing the strength and agility of the formidable creature. Accelerated healing to mend wounds swiftly. Superhuman strength that surpassed that of humans, enabling him to overpower adversaries effortlessly. And superhuman speed, granting him the agility and reflexes to move with incredible swiftness. Theon's heart swelled with gratitude for the bestowed gifts, fully realizing the immense power he now possessed. The sum of the lords and attendants in the room marveled at the blessings bestowed upon their king and some envied them, but all of them recognized the fact that the North would be safeguarded by a leader with such extraordinary abilities. But Eru added, "While I have blessed your sister and son with this power, but remember this gift won't appear in all of your family bloodline, only a true Stark who embodies the similar character as yours will be able to awaken this bloodline again." Theon Stark, his son Jason, and his sister Eliza accepted the imposed restrictions. As time passes, only two members of the Stark family, Cregan Stark and Arya Stark, have awakened the wolf blood abilities. As Eru turned, he faced his avatar Vlad, intending to bestow upon him a false blessing. "Vlad Teeps, what is your wish?" he asked with a deceptive glimmer in his eyes. Vlad acted perfectly, he humbly bowed and replied, "I already have a wondrous blessing from you, Lord Eru." Amused by Vlad's response, Eru smiled and said, "Very well, then. I shall bestow upon your family and bloodline the gifts of good luck and prosperity." Vlad once again bowed his head, while Eru went on to give all the other northern lords minor blessings. All of them were happy with what they received. Eru, observing their reactions, nodded approvingly. "Use these gifts wisely, King Theon Stark and Vlad Teeps. They are a testament to your unwavering dedication and will aid you in protecting the North." With that, Eru faded from view, leaving the throne room buzzing with a newfound sense of awe and inspiration. Theon, now bearing the blessings of the wolf blood, knew that he had been chosen for a great purpose. He would wield his newfound abilities to defend his people, ensuring that the North remained a bastion of strength and resilience under his rule. Chapter 29, Rise of Valyria. Arian, the shepherd from Valyria, found himself drawn to a small temple nestled amidst the mountains of the Valyrian peninsula. Despite its crumbling exterior, it retained an aura of mystery. Anxious and fearful, Arian's heart was heavy with the weight of his troubles. For days, Arian came to the temple, seeking guidance through fervent prayers and offerings to the gods. The stone walls echoed with his pleas, as he poured out his soul with every word. His faith and belief in the divine presence of the ancient gods gave him hope that they would listen to his prayers. Yet, despite his dedicated devotion, doubts began to creep into Arian's mind. Were the gods truly listening? Did they even exist anymore? With each unanswered prayer, his fears threatened to overwhelm him. Was he merely grasping at the memories of a bygone era, believing in something that no longer held power in the present? Nevertheless, he persisted. For within the depths of his soul, he knew that he could not simply abandon his faith. His ancestors started following ancient gods after being saved by Olmo's water priests, and from then on they followed every one of the ancient gods. Arian's heart pounded in his chest as he witnessed the astonishing sight before him. The majestic figure, once gleaming in gold with head of a falcon, with plasma blue-colored eyes with gold and silver-colored wings, otherwise identical to falcon wings. As powerful gust of wind from Horus' wings swept over him, causing his hair to ruffle and his clothes to flutter. He looked up in amazement at the majestic figure before him, Horus, the god of the sky, who had descended from the heavens to answer his prayers. The sound of a falcon's cry echoed through the air, replacing any ordinary speech that could have emanated from the divine being. He soon took on a more relatable form. As the divine transformation occurred, the metallic body morphed into a towering humanoid shape. Horus stood between 8 to 10 feet tall man, exuding an aura of otherworldly presence. Horus' luminous blue eyes locked onto Arian's, and the shepherd felt a mix of anxiety and reverence in the presence of this divine being. The god's regal and approachable expression offered comfort, reassuring Arian that he was not alone in his prayers and fears. Horus still radiated power and wisdom, his presence casting a glow over the surrounding landscape. Arian, overwhelmed by the sight and sound of the godly entity, fell to his knees, a mix of astonishment and reverence flooding his being. He had prayed to Eru, the supreme deity, and his prayers had reached the ears of Horus, the emissary of the gods. With a voice that resonated deep within Arian's soul, Horus spoke, his words carrying a divine weight. "Rise, humble shepherd," he commanded, his tones simultaneously gentle and commanding. "Your devotion has been heard, and I have come to guide you on the path you seek." Arian, still awestruck, slowly stood up, his eyes locked on the radiant figure before him, his encounter with Horus imbuing him with newfound courage and determination. Arian wasted no time in sharing his plight with the god, explaining how his family and fellow shepherds were ordinary people caught in a dire situation. Recently, a large group of raiders had settled near their home, relentlessly plundering their sheep. Initially, they obeyed the raiders' demands, but now the marauders were demanding the unthinkable, the wives and daughters of their community as slaves. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Horus nodded solemnly and assured Arian, "I comprehend your predicament. Ask for a boon, and it shall be granted." Arian's heart swelled with hope, but he soon found himself lost in contemplation, pondering the best course of action. Should I request immense strength? He wondered aloud. However, he quickly dismissed the idea, realizing that even with great power, his children would remain vulnerable after his eventual demise. Suddenly, a memory sparked within Arian's mind. He recalled hearing tales from a traveler who had journeyed from a distant realm known as the Shadowlands. The traveler had spoken of magnificent creatures called dragons, powerful beings that thrived for centuries. Legends held that these majestic creatures possessed the ability to lay waste to entire nations with their fiery breath. Determined, Arian found his resolve and declared, "I seek for my people the power to forge a bond with dragons and command them." Horus, his falcon-like gaze fixed upon the valiant shepherd, considered his request. He immediately contacted his father through telepathy. Eru was now surprised and muttered, "So they really are fated to have dragons." Eru told his son to grant it, but don't give him absolute control over the intelligent beast. After a brief pause, the god responded with a voice that echoed with ancient wisdom, "Your request is bold, but I see the determination in your eyes. I shall grant you this power, but remember you would never be able to fully control a powerful beast like a dragon." Arian's heart leaped with joy and gratitude. He knew that with the ability to control dragons, he could protect his family, his community, and restore peace to their land. Little did he know that this newfound power would also lead him on a path filled with challenges, testing his courage and lead his descendants to their very doom. Horus, with a majestic wave of his hand, 4 dragons materialized before them. These mythical creatures had long, serpentine bodies, adorned with proportionately elongated necks and tails. Their anatomy included 4 limbs, 2 short back legs and 2 massive wings that served as forelimbs, resembling the body plan of a bat. They were not fully grown and only had the size of elephant for now. As the dragons stood before Arion and Horus, their eyes gleamed with curiosity and power. Arion felt a mix of awe and responsibility in their presence, understanding the gravity of the gift he had received, and muttered, "Amazing." Horus then spoke to Arion, "You shall possess the ability to communicate with these dragons through your birth tongue, Valerian." Arion nodded, while the bond between man and dragon had been rekindled, and the destiny of Valyria was forever changed. Arion approached the dragons with respect, offering his hand as a gesture of friendship. With his heart filled with compassion and reverence for these mythical beings, he conveyed his intentions and sought to establish a connection with them. The dragons, perceptive of Arion's genuine intentions, gazed into his soul, assessing his character and purpose. Finding him worthy, they reciprocated the gesture, allowing Arion to touch their scaled snouts with a gentle hand. With Horus as his guide, Arion dedicated himself to learning the ways of the dragons. He studied their behaviors, respected their instincts, and sought to harmonize their powers with the well-being of his people and the land of Valyria. Also, Horus advised Arion, the first dragon rider, about the dangerous nature of the bond between dragon and rider. He emphasized that the strength of the bond depends primarily on the dragon, rather than the rider. He cautioned against bonding with more than one dragon, as it could weaken the connection between the dragon and its rider. There are possibilities of this working, but only if the bond between the rider and dragon is really strong. The only one who tried this was Aemon Targaryen. Additionally, Horus warned Arion not to claim a dragon whose rider had just passed away, but instead, wait for 2 moons, 2 months, to allow the dragon time to grieve. This way, the bond between the dragon and its new rider would be stronger, reducing the risk of the dragon disobeying and going berserk. This rule was broken by one individual. One was Maegor the Cruel. Chapter 30, Chapter 25. The Pairing. 1. Eliza Stark, OC, confirmed. 2. Rhaenyra Targaryen, confirmed. 3. Maegor Gardner Tyrell, confirmed. 4. Daenerys Targaryen, confirmed. 5. Val from Free Folk / Wildlings, Imagine Lajertha from Viking or Atlanta from Legend of Hercules, unconfirmed. 6. Missandei, unconfirmed. All the gods gathered in the halls of Eru. Massive columns rose to a domed ceiling, gilded with moving constellations. 12 thrones, built for beings the size of 8 feet, were arranged in an inverted U. An enormous fire crackled in the central hearth pit. Each throne had a respective symbol belonging to their domain. The divine siblings assembled from time to time to discuss their duties and other matters. This time, they were eager to bond and get to know their younger siblings. They engaged in conversations about various realms, such as Westeros and Essos. Ulmo spoke up first. Initially, I thought father favored the North, Dorne, and the Reach. However, it seems he foresaw the fact that many in the South, like the Westerlands and Stormlands, would forsake him. Everyone nodded in agreement, while Mandos added, it is best not to doubt or question father's actions. After all, we may not be able to comprehend his ultimate goals. Nephthys frowned and shared her thoughts. There is darkness in the world. The constant struggle for power leads to countless lives lost. Surya replied, Father has given them free will. It is their choices that led them there. And for darkness, there is light. I have seen many people do good in this world, like the water priests in Essos who are taught by Brother Ulmo and Father. They are always helping others, providing guidance, and even freeing slaves. If we look at Westeros, we see the righteous North, the Reach, who constantly provide education and food for the poor, and Dorne, who help the poor thrive and become better. Everyone smiled, acknowledging that Father chose his people well. Ulmo sighed and looked at the so-called Iron Islands, saying, I am increasingly disappointed with the Iron Islands. They seem to have a strong connection to the ocean, but they have wasted it away with their ratings instead of bettering themselves. Ulmo provided them with small opportunities for growth, but all of them were ignored. Everyone nodded, acknowledging that they all had a certain connection to specific lands, but most of them wanted to see where these connections would lead. Anubis spoke up, "It is best not to do something without Father's permission. He has already given us a lot of freedom. It is best not to upset him." Once again, there was agreement, and they returned to their discussion. Set expressed his fondness for the land his father tasked him with protecting and said with a small smile, "Ah, the deserts of Dorne. Harsh and unforgiving, much like the lands I rule over. I wonder how they will shape the fate of this world." Nephthys smiled at her husband and replied, "They are very strong people. I am sure they have a bright future." Hathor also smiled and said, "Love and passion are strong forces in this realm. The intricate relationships and forbidden romances among them captivate me. Love truly knows no bounds, even amidst chaos." Everyone chuckled at Hathor's comment, while Yavanna smiled and said, "The forests and nature here hold a delicate balance. The Moor folk are living peacefully without issues between giants, children of the forest, and men. I hope other lands can become as peaceful as them one day." While Yavanna knew it was too idealistic, she still hoped it would be possible one day. Set with a growl spoke up, "Also this faith of the Seven seems to want control of all Westeros, since managed to guide their followers here and even to get weapons from Ryonar." Ulmo hummed and replied, "True, but I don't think they will fester much because of the strong belief in ancient gods. Instead they lost many of their original followers." This brought quite a few laughed among them. As they continued their discussion, Mandos, remembering the Shadowlands, frowned with disgust and said, "I am repulsed by the Shadowlands. Ashai is a mysterious port city located in the far southeast of the known part of Essos, where the Ash River meets the Jade Sea at its eastern exit, known as the Saffron Straits. Ashai is situated on the southernmost edge of a mountainous peninsula known as the Shadowlands. Hence, the city is often called Ashai by the Shadow or Ashai by the Shadow. To go to Ashai can be described as passing beneath the shadow, and the area of the Shadowlands and Ashai are sometimes referred to simply as the Shadow. Ashai is open to all sorts of practitioners of the higher mysteries, such as gods' wives, pyromancers, bloodmages, as well as inquisitors, torturers, poisoners, and even worshippers of the Black Goat and Bacallan, and the Lion of Night. No practice is forbidden in the city, no matter how depraved. Mandos could see his siblings agreeing with him, while older ones like Ulmo and Surya grimaced, remembering their dark deeds. However, none of them could directly destroy Ashai, at least not unless Father gave them a direct order. Anubis added his idea, "Maybe we could ask Father to create an order like the Water Priests again to combat Ashai." Surya's eyes gleamed with interest, and he said, "That would work." Mandos interjected, "But we need to run this by Father first." Ulmo dismissed the concern and replied, "Father will have no issue with this since we are not directly interfering with Westeros." Set then inquired, "What are your thoughts on Valyria?" All eyes turned to Horus, as he had been in close contact with them. With a sigh, Horus responded, "They have a lot of potential, and some even possess magic, likely stemming from their ancestors' ties to Ashai." Upon hearing this, the others frowned slightly, but they decided to reserve judgment and wait to see how things unfold. It was Surya who spoke up next, saying, "Let's hope they don't follow the same dark path as the mages of the Shadowlands." The group unanimously agreed on this, and Horus hoped they would not disappoint him. However, little did he know that his hopes would be shattered in the future. Chapter 31, Chapter 26. Theon had to take some time getting used to his new blessing, since he was experiencing heightened emotional states, such as losing control of his anger. Vlad helped him through it, while they were checking out the full length of his powers. Vlad spoke up, "Now use it." Theon nodded and closed his eyes, and when he opened it, his irises turned from his regular gray eye color to a swirling black color and then turns bright yellow. The veins in his hands and neck then start to become darker and reveal themselves. When he first used his power, he was almost overpowered his almost supernatural level senses, such as being able to detect odors and track scents that humans miss, hear sounds with greater clarity, across greater distances, and see better at night. Suddenly he started to hear a spider trapping its prey as if it were large and were echoing throughout the forest. Theon grinned and muttered, "Amazing." Vlad broke him out his awe focus. Theon was powering along a narrow path in front of him. He moves at superhuman speed, leaving a blurring wake of leaves. Vlad, quickly using his own ability, sped behind him, his motion blurred, leaving behind a continuous stream of sculptural cloth. While Theon was running through the forest, he felt free and his foot splits a log as he bounds over it. Thean charges towards a secluded stream. It's 30 feet wide. He doesn't slow, leaps off the bank and effortlessly hopscotches from boulder to the other side. His abilities from Wolfbloods made physically exert himself for longer periods of time without tiring. It was in a greater physical capacity than humans, allowing them to run very fast for long periods. Another powerful ability was Iola's. Iola's allows Wolfbloods to connect with nature, culminating in the user discovering someone's whereabouts. Thean stopped and smiled after checking out his powers, while Vlad easily caught up to him with his void walking ability. Vlad hummed and said, "Now, let's try turning into the wolf form. So focus on the transformation, so you don't lose control like last time." Thean nodded and agreed with his friend and brother in all but blood. After receiving the blessing, Thean was eager to try and transform into his wolf form. However, as he began shape-shifting, an overwhelming surge of sensations almost made him lose control. Fortunately, Vlad intervened, knocking him out to prevent any harm. Thean was gradually learning to manage these intense emotional outbursts through meditation taught by Vlad, seeking balance within himself. So now he focused on his shape-shifting and. During the transformation, every cell in Thean's body underwent a profound change, down to the very core of his DNA, culminating in his complete metamorphosis into a magnificent wolf. With a deep breath, Thean leaped into the air, a sharp tearing sound accompanying the shredding of his clothes. Fur erupted from his skin, and he gracefully landed as an enormous black wolf. He approached Vlad with a low, unsettling growl resonating in his throat, his sharp teeth glinting in the light. Cautiously, Vlad placed his hands on his katana handle and spoke, "Thean, focus." Thean's wolf form seemed to gain control, and the growling gradually ceased. After getting a handle on his new form, Thean playfully ran around for a bit before returning. He then started the transformation back into his human self, and Vlad swiftly handed him the clothes he had brought. "I love the feeling of running in wolf form, it's so liberating," Thean remarked. Vlad smiled in agreement, replying, "Indeed, it is. The only issue I see is the inevitable tearing of clothes." Thean frowned and concurred, "Yes, that can be quite annoying. But the freedom and power are undoubtedly worth it." Thean added, "Also don't forget you have to meet my sister tomorrow." Vlad nodded and replied, "I didn't forget." Chapter 32, Chapter 27. Thean Stark took on the role of a matchmaker, skillfully arranging meetings between his sister and best friend. The chemistry between them was evident, with sparks flying during each encounter. The dense forest came alive with whispers from ancient trees and dappled sunlight that pierced through the thick canopy above. Eliza Stark rode gracefully on her spirited steed, her gray eyes scanning the surroundings with wonder and curiosity. Vlad Teeps, a charismatic yet enigmatic figure with dark hair and a piercing gaze, kept pace beside her on his imposing black stallion. In companionable silence, Eliza and Vlad rode on, the rhythmic sounds of their horses' hooves against the forest floor echoing through the woods. Eventually, the peaceful ambience prompted Eliza to strike up a conversation. Looking around, Eliza said, "This Wolfwood forest holds a special place in my heart. I find myself drawn to its beauty and quiet atmosphere." As sunlight hit Eliza's face, Vlad couldn't help but find her even more beautiful. He smiled faintly and replied, "Indeed, it is very beautiful." Noticing Vlad's gaze, Eliza blushed a little and quickly changed the topic, "Tell me, Vlad, what do you do for leisure when you're not defending your realm?" Leaning back, Vlad looked amused and said, "Ah, leisure. A rare luxury for one like me. Yet, in quieter moments, I find solace in brushing up my sword skills, and perhaps practicing archery." Eliza's eyes lit up with intrigue, and she smiled, asking, "So, can you teach me your sword style? I find it very interesting." Vlad smiled back and replied, "I guess I can teach you." Eliza was happy and said, "Then it is settled. We will start tomorrow." Vlad chuckled and simply nodded, agreeing with her. As they continued their ride, the forest grew denser, but neither Eliza nor Vlad seemed bothered by the eerie atmosphere. They continued talking about their hobbies and past experiences. During their journey through the mysterious forest, Eliza and Vlad discovered an unexpected kinship, two enigmatic souls united by their love for the unknown and their respective journeys in life. Upon returning, Vlad assumed his true form and began investigating the events unfolding in Valyria and Essos. He discovered that Arian had cleverly utilized dragons to fend off the raiders and acquired their wealth, which he used to establish trade with neighboring cities. Eru couldn't help but smile as he observed Horus providing Arian with various trade techniques. Yet, despite these positive developments, Eru couldn't shake the feeling that the Valyrians would eventually succumb to their darker tendencies, and the doom of Valyria remained an inevitable fate. During his observations, Eru noticed that the dragons in Valyria were even larger than Beleriand the Dread, a remarkable and awe-inspiring sight. During that time, another significant issue arose between the House of Hightower and the King of Reach. The problem stemmed from an alliance between maesters from the Citadel and self-proclaimed septons from the Starry September. With House Hightower's backing, they spread rumors and false stories discrediting the ancient gods. However, their plan unraveled when two of their own supporters or sworn houses, House Bulwer of Blackcrown and House Costain of the Three Towers. The first one felt this tactics was disgusting, while the later feared divine punishment, so both have reported it to King Garam Gardner of the Reach. This scandal became a lasting stain on the faith of the Seven, the Citadel Maesters, and House Hightower. The aftermath was far-reaching, a ban on faith of the 7 representatives in Reach, Dorne, and the North without permission, punishable by execution. King Garam, mindful of the House Hightower's historical ties, refrained from completely dispossessing them of their lands. Instead, he opted to sever their territories from the Kingdom of Reach. During that period, the House of Hightower found itself with only a handful of remaining sworn houses, House Beesbury of Honeyholt, House Kewy of Sunhouse, and House Mullendor of Uplands. This was not all. House Hightower, once in charge of Old Town, the second wealthiest city in Westeros after King's Landing, suffered greatly. Old Town, which thrived as a trading hub, boasting the realm's second most important port. Ships from around the world, including the 9 free cities and the Summer Isles, docked there, fostering global connections, now lost a lot of trading opportunities due to many traders from Essos not wanting to annoy the major powers in Westeros like Dorne, Reach and North each held major trading hubs. Yet, House Hightower's prosperity took a hit due to their attack on the ancient god's faith and the other traitor the reluctance be associated with House of Hightower and angering powerful kingdoms like the North, Reach, and Dorne. Despite the setback, House Hightower persisted, supported by their ties to the Starry September and the Citadel. However, their wealth and prestige dwindled significantly. Chapter 33, Chapter 28. All 20 members of the community were blessed by Eru with the ability to tame dragons. He provided them with 4 dragons, 2 of which were male and the other 2 were female. Also, all the members of the community had certain change in features like silvery hair and purple eyes. Arian, with his dragon, easily raised the group of raiders. It was a complete massacre, but it didn't end there. With such powerful dragons, the desire to become a lord or king naturally emerged. The initial 20 members were called Dragon Lords, but not all of them had dragons due to the limited number of dragons available, only 4 in total. Arian, as the leader of Valyria, began expanding their influence and established the freehold with the city of Valyria as its capital. During this time, they started praying to Eru and Horus for guidance and luck. Horus showed favoritism and provided them with assistance, similar to Ulmo, by sharing knowledge about forging, building, and more. Meanwhile, Valyrians had the ability to use magic, although not everyone possessed this gift. As a result, Valyrians started to grow more and more powerful. Magic flourished, and towering, majestic structures reached toward the sky where dragons soared. Stone Valyrian sphinxes gazed down with garnet eyes, and skilled smiths used spells to forge legendary Valyrian steel weapons known for their strength and sharpness. During an era of great prosperity, Arian, a man proud of his achievements, saw his children rise to become dragon lords. Among them, his youngest daughter, Amphitrite, held a special place in his heart. Amphitrite possessed a beauty that was both regal and commanding. Her eyes, a captivating shade of purple, exuded a vibrant and intense hue, enhancing the allure and hypnotic power of her gaze. Her crowning glory was a cascade of amazing silvery gray-plated locks, reminiscent of shimmering frost. This ethereal appearance bestowed upon her an air of enchantment and grace. Being Arian's cherished and youngest daughter, Amphitrite became the subject of many suitors' desires. However, her icy demeanor made it impossible for anyone to win her over. Rather than being captivated by dragons like her siblings, Amphitrite was a free spirit who yearned for the open seas. Sailing across vast waters, she explored the depths and captured the essence of marine life through her artistic endeavors. During one of her voyages, she chanced upon a man who carried himself with regal grace and exuded unwavering confidence. His features were chiseled and sculpted, granting him a noble countenance. A strong jawline added to his commanding presence, while his piercing eyes mirrored the depths of the ocean itself, radiating both wisdom and unyielding determination. Amphitrite found herself irresistibly drawn to this individual, and as their conversations flowed naturally, a profound connection blossomed between them, drawing them closer with each passing moment. This was none other than Olmo himself, who was curious about Amphitrite due to her deep affinity for the sea. He never imagined he could fall in love with her. While she promised to see him, he was unsure since his father forbade him from having relationships with mortals. As Olmo stood on the beach, lost in thoughts of his beloved Amphitrite, he was saddened by the whole situation. So with his divine powers, he manipulated the waters, shaping them into a lifelike model of Amphitrite. The sea water swirled and danced, mimicking her every feature and movement, a testament to the depth of his love for her. Olmo was lost in thought when he heard a voice. "My dear older brother, what is it that I sense from you?" Olmo waved his hand as the model of Amphitrite he had created. Olmo allowed the sea water to disperse, returning the waves to their natural state. Olmo turned and saw that it was Hathor. Keeping a calm face, he replied, "Nothing." He saw Hathor and next to her was Yavanna. While Hathor grinned and said, "Don't lie, brother. I can sense a deep longing and love." Olmo winced, knowing that Hathor, being the goddess of love, could easily perceive his emotions. Yavanna embraced her brother, a gesture of support and love. "Tell us, brother, we are always behind you." Olmo, realizing that lying was futile, he decided to tell her the truth. "I have fallen in love with a mortal." Hathor's smile grew upon hearing this, and she said, "Tell me more." Olmo complied and explained how he met Amphitrite and how he had fallen deeply in love with her. While Yavanna was happy and Hathor grinned and said, "The bond between you is so strong, I can tell she feels the same." Olmo felt a mixture of happiness and sadness. "But I cannot be with her. She is a mortal, and our father has forbidden any relationships with them." Hathor facepalmed and explained, "Oh, you foolish brother of mine. Father did not forbid relationships with mortals. He simply warned us against indiscriminate affairs and breaking hearts. He seems to have foreseen this and allowed for some leeway in the law. As long as you inform father and take her as your lawful wife, nothing will happen." Olmo was stumped by this revelation and deeply contemplated their father's words. He understood that his father's law was not against relationships with mortals per se, but rather against reckless and casual encounters. Unlike the Greek counterpart Poseidon, Olmo had more control and was incredibly loyal to the person he would fall in love with, which in this case was Amphitrite. They would have a demigod son in the future and his name was Perseus and founder house of Valerian. However, Valeria's expansion would draw the attention of other countries, particularly the old empire of Guys, which dominated and controlled much of Essos. The Giscari was start attempts to stop Valeria's expansion, leading to a series of great wars between the burgeoning freehold and the old empire. Chapter 34, Chapter 29 Marriage of Eliza and Vlad. Under the enchanting moonlit night, the gods wood comes alive with an ethereal glow, embracing the sacred weirwood heart tree adorned with statues of the ancient gods. The torches illuminate the area, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. The priestess of Hathor, goddess of love and marriage. Eliza, radiant in her wedding attire, is led gracefully towards the gathering by her stalwart brother, Theon Stark. As they approach, the wise and venerable Lord Manderley stands tall, representing a fatherly figure for Vlad, and he questions with a solemn tone, "Who comes before the ancient gods this night?" Theon's voice resonates with reverence as he replies, "Eliza, of the house Stark, comes here to be wed. A woman grown, true-born and noble. She comes to beg the blessing of the gods. Who comes to claim her?" Vlad steps forward, his presence exuding regal authority, and declares, "I, Vlad Tepes, of House Tepes, heir to the Tower of Tepes, come to claim her." Turning to Theon, Vlad asks in a voice brimming with emotion, "Theon, of the House Stark, who gives her away?" Theon stands tall, his heart swelling with pride and love for his sister, and he replies with unwavering certainty, "I, Theon Stark, brother of Eliza, give her away." As the ancient gods would bears witness to the sacred union, the priestess of Hathor, adorned in flowing white robes, steps forward, her presence commanding respect and reverence. She raises her hands towards the heart tree, invoking the blessings of the ancient gods upon the couple. Her voice carries a timeless wisdom as she speaks, "O revered gods of old, we gather here under the watchful eyes of the heart tree to witness the joining of two souls, Eliza Stark and Vlad Tepes. Eliza and Vlad stand before the priestess, their hearts filled with a mixture of excitement and solemnity. The priestess turns to Eliza and asks, "Eliza, daughter of the noble house Stark, do you come of your own free will, ready to embrace the ancient ways and unite your soul with Vlad Tepes?" With unwavering conviction, Eliza replies, her voice resolute, "I do. I stand here before the gods, ready to walk this path with Vlad, to honor the traditions of our people, and to bind our hearts and blood for all time." The priestess nods approvingly, her eyes reflecting a deep understanding of the weight of this moment. She then turns her attention to Vlad and inquires, "Vlad Tepes, heir of the ancient lineage, do you come of your own free will, prepared to share your life with Eliza Stark and uphold the ancient legacy of our ancestors?" Vlad's voice is strong and steady as he answers, "I do. I pledge my love and to protect and cherish the bond we formed tonight." The priestess smiles, her expression one of serene grace, as she bestows her blessings upon the couple. "May the ancient gods bless and protect this and your legacy endure through the ages," she intones, her words carrying the weight of tradition and the fervent hope for a prosperous future. Eliza and Vlad exchange a heartfelt glance, their souls entwined in a love that transcends time. With the blessings of the ancient gods and the sacred spirits of nature surrounding them, Eliza and Vlad join hands, kneeling before the awe-inspiring heart tree as a symbol of their humility and devotion. A hushed moment of silent prayer passes, allowing the ancient gods to witness their union. As they rise, Vlad's hands tenderly remove Eliza's maiden's cloak, signifying her transformation into a wife, while her eyes meet his, reflecting boundless affection. He adorns her with the cloak of a bride, a symbol of their unity and commitment to each other. With warmth and affection, Vlad carries Eliza in his arms, embracing her delicate form, and together they embark on the path to the grand feast, where their love and devotion will be celebrated by all in attendance. Under the watchful eyes of the ancient gods and the spirits of the godswood, the night resonates with joy and love, as Eliza Stark and Vlad Tepes step into a future intertwined, united by the bonds of love and blessed by the ancient gods themselves. Chapter 35, Chapter 30. Eru and Olmo's Talk. In Eru's palace, all the children were gathered, and Eru focused his gaze on Olmo. Olmo proceeded to explain to Eru how he had fallen in love with Amphitrite, the mortal Valyrian granddaughter of Arion. Eru sensed Olmo's worry, fearing that he would reject the entire relationship. However, Eru would never do such a thing. His only concern was that his children would refrain from engaging in casual affairs and indiscriminately creating offspring, akin to the world of Percy Jackson. Interrupting Olmo's thoughts, Hather's voice spoke up. "Father, it is true. Olmo has truly fallen in love with Amphitrite. Their love is strong and pure." Eru hummed thoughtfully and replied, "I have never been against my children finding love. My only concern is that you all refrain from engaging in casual affairs and avoid creating demigods without due consideration." Olmo sighed in relief, while Eru added, "As long as you marry her and be loyal to her. I am not against it." Olmo was happy and replied, "Thank you, father." Eru nodded. Continue, "You can change her into an immortal when the time is right." Olmo nodded earnestly, while Eru noticed that some of his other children, such as Surya, Horus and Matos, while Set was looking at his wife, Nephthys, with deep thoughts. They were all contemplating relationships, and Set was considering having a child. Olmo transformed into a small vortex of water, while Eru chuckled and remarked, "He is so eager to share this news with her." Everyone smiled at the thought, while Olmo met Amphitrite and revealed his true identity to her. It came as a shock to her, but they talked about it with Arion, who was astonished to learn that Olmo, the sea god, had fallen in love with his granddaughter. The revelation was shocking, but Arion was also thrilled about the prospects of this relationship. When the news was announced, there were naturally some disagreements, as none of them had known Olmo's true identity and only perceived him as a seafaring merchant. Some individuals disapproved, but they were unable to voice their objections for the time being. As time passed, Olmo and Amphitrite had their first child, whom they named Perseus. Vlad's study was adorned with the grandeur of Tepes' castle, lined with shelves of ancient tomes and maps that told tales of his realm's prosperity. He sat engrossed in reports, a lord dedicated to his people's well-being, when the door creaked open. Eliza's entrance was a burst of energy. Eliza's heart was racing. She looked into Vlad's eyes, her hands trembling with a mixture of fear and excitement. She took a deep breath, her voice quivering as she began, "Vlad, there's something I need to tell you. I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air, a weighty silence settling between them. Vlad's expression shifted from surprise to a mixture of astonishment and joy, his eyes searching hers for confirmation. "Eliza," he whispered, his voice laced with emotion, "are you sure?" Tears welled up in Eliza's eyes as she nodded, a fragile smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Yes, Vlad. I went to the healer, and it's positive. This is really happening." Vlad's arms enveloped her in a tender embrace, pulling her close as if he could shield her from the world's uncertainties. "I can't believe it," he murmured, his voice choked with happiness. "We're going to be parents." Vlad's eyes held a tinge of sadness, a shadow of a memory he could never fully escape. His thoughts briefly drifted to his first son, a child born in a world of cultivation, a world of power and ambition. The boy's thirst for power led him down a path of darkness, transforming him into a tyrant fueled by his pride in his lineage of a god and abilities. With a heavy heart, Vlad had no choice but to strip his own son of the very bloodline and powers that defined him, watching as he embraced a mortal life once more. The decision had been agonizing, a desperate attempt to halt the destruction his son was causing. And yet, that choice had shattered the bond between them, leaving a chasm between father and son. The memory of his son's transformation was a haunting reminder of his own imperfections as a parent. He understood the anger of his son's mother, the heartbreak she felt, and the bitterness that had driven her to sever their relationship. Regret weighed on Vlad's shoulders, a burden he carried as a reminder of his past missteps. Now, as he stood with Eliza, the weight of his history colored his desire to be a better father. The anticipation of becoming a parent again ignited a renewed determination within him. He was driven by the painful lessons of his past, a determination to ensure that this time, he would not falter. He wanted to create a different legacy for his future child, to be the kind of father who nurtured, guided, and protected without stifling or overpowering. In that moment, as Eliza's presence enveloped him, Vlad's eyes held a mixture of hope and trepidation. He knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, that the scars of his past decisions would forever shape him. Yet, he was resolute in his commitment to be the father he aspired to be, to learn from his mistakes, and to ensure that this child would know love, guidance, and the strength to choose a better path. As they stood there, locked in each other's arms, Eliza felt a flood of emotions rush over her. She thought about the journey they had been on, the challenges they had faced, and now this new chapter that was unfolding before them. The room seemed to shimmer with the weight of their dreams and the reality of their future as a family. With her head resting on Vlad's shoulder, Eliza whispered, her voice filled with a mix of wonder and vulnerability, "I'm scared, Vlad." "Scared of what if I am not a good mother?" Vlad's fingers gently lifted her chin, his eyes locking onto hers with an unwavering determination. "Eliza, we'll face those issues together and I am sure you will be a great mother." A tear rolled down Eliza's cheek, a tear that held the intensity of all her emotions. She leaned in, their foreheads touching, their souls entwined. As they stood there, wrapped in their shared embrace. Chapter 36, Notice. I know this story is lagging a bit, but soon the war with Giscari and Ryanish wars will come. Also another point is about children of Vlad, who are twins. The names are Lucian Teeps and Rachel, Raven, Teeps. While Lucian is similar to the Underworld version, Rachel or Raven is similar with Titan's show version and had same powers. Chapter 37, Chapter 32 Children of Vlad and Eliza. In the warm cocoon of their chambers, a tender scene unfolded. Vlad Teeps cradled his newborn daughter, Raven Teeps, in his strong and gentle arms. Eliza Stark, still recovering, sat on the bed with their elder child, Lucian Teeps, nestled beside her, their eyes fixated on the heartwarming sight before them. Vlad's deep voice hummed a sweet melody, the soft notes weaving through the air like a soothing lullaby. Baby Raven, her eyes sparkling with innocence, responded with infectious giggles, her tiny hands reaching out to grasp at the world around her. Vlad's love for his daughter was evident in the tender smile that graced his lips as he leaned in, placing a delicate kiss on her tiny nose, eliciting an endearing gurgle from the little one. Eliza, a contented smile tugging at the corners of her lips, observed the scene with a heart full of warmth. The tableau of her husband and daughter was a sight to behold, a testament to the love that bound their family together. The subtle rhythm of Vlad's hum, the innocent laughter of their daughter, and the exchange of affectionate gestures formed a symphony of parental love that resonated within the chamber's confines. "Look at them, Vlad," Eliza whispered, her voice a soft murmur of affection, "you have a way with her." Vlad's gaze shifted briefly from their daughter to meet Eliza's eyes, his expression a mix of joy and tenderness. "She's a bright light, just like her mother," he replied, his voice carrying a depth of emotion. While Vlad looked at their son, Lucian, who was yawning and casting curious glances around him, his gray eyes, a clear inheritance from the Starks, held a spark of curiosity and wonder. Vlad's smile deepened as he remarked, "He has your eyes." Eliza's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and adoration as she watched her little one snuggle into her, his tiny form seeking comfort in her embrace. Her gaze flickered between her husband and her son, a tender smile gracing her lips. "Our family is perfect," she whispered softly, her words were heartfelt. As Raven's giggles and Vlad's humming agreeing with her, as Vlad hummed a song from his last life. The soft melody flowed from Vlad's lips, a tune that carried the echoes of a past world, a world where he had lived a different life. The gentle hum filled the room, intertwining with the air and weaving a soothing atmosphere. Raven, his precious daughter, lay in his arms, her eyes growing heavy as the soothing lullaby wrapped around her. Vlad's voice, tender and warm, cradled her in a cocoon of comfort, lulling her towards the realm of dreams. As he sang, Vlad's gaze remained fixed on his daughter, his heart overflowing with love and determination. The words he whispered held a promise that resonated deep within him. "Don't worry, I will always be there by your side," he murmured softly, his voice carrying the weight of his devotion. "I will make sure to cherish, protect and guide you down the correct path." Vlad knew that he was embarking on a new chapter of his life. A chapter where he would rectify his past mistakes, where he would be the guiding light his daughter and son deserved. The song's last notes faded, and Vlad gently placed Raven in the crib next to Lucian's. His hand brushed a strand of hair from Raven's forehead, and a smile crossed his lips, with a silent promise in his heart. He watched over her as she drifted into peaceful sleep. Chapter 33 Valyrian Lord finds out about Perseus. As time passed, Perseus was now 15 years old and he was Eru's first grandchild, and while his features surprised some of the Valyrians, with his black hair and sea-green eyes, Aryan, Amphitrite, and her parents disregarded it. They recognized that this child was a demigod, and as he grew up, he displayed strength, speed, and dexterity beyond that of normal humans. Perseus was aware of his heritage and kept it quiet. He was a happy child who didn't care about others' opinions, and he even visited his grandfather, Eru, from time to time. Due to Ulmo's responsibilities as a god, he couldn't spend as much time with his son as he would have liked. Thus, Perseus was primarily raised by his mother, but Ulmo made an effort to spend as much time with him as he could. Naturally, when Perseus turned 14, he developed abilities connected to his father's domain. Hydrokinesis. Perseus can control large volumes of water, lifting up to 10,000 gallons and using it for various purposes such as drying objects underwater, extracting water from moist substances, creating oxygen bubbles, propelling himself through water, summoning waves, and manipulating water to explode or grab objects. Water solidification. Perseus can increase the surface tension of water, solidifying it to create shapes, allowing him to walk on water and create a strong water shield. He can also shape water into giant hands that mimic his own movements. Hydrogenesis. By concentrating and summoning the force of the ocean within him, Perseus can create water, although it requires significant energy and focus. Water empowerment. When in contact with or near water, Perseus gains enhanced clarity, strength, speed, agility, and endurance. However, this boost is temporary unless he is fully submerged in water. Water immunity. Perseus is unaffected by water pressure when falling from great heights into water. He remains dry when submerged unless he chooses to get wet. Additionally, he can breathe underwater indefinitely and see in the dark underwater. Toxikinesis. Limited. Perseus has some control over poisons and other liquids that contain water content. Cryokinesis. Limited. Perseus can manipulate frozen or icy water to a certain extent. Vitakinesis. Limited. Perseus can heal most wounds and cure poisons when in contact with water, but the amount of water and time required depends on the severity of the injury. Heat immunity. Limited. Due to his father's nature, Perseus has increased resistance to heat burns. Watercraft manipulation. Perseus possesses an innate understanding of any ship he is on and can telekinetically operate sailing vessels and similar boats. Perfect bearings. Perseus always knows his exact nautical coordinates, enabling him to navigate the seas effortlessly. Instinctive understanding of sailing. Perseus has an intuitive grasp of sailing, knowing which ropes to hoist, which sails to raise, and which direction to steer. He can even sense their speed. Otmokinesis. Limited. Perseus has limited control over weather, allowing him to summon storms and miniature hurricanes, albeit at a significant cost to his energy. Aerokinesis, limited Perseus can summon strong winds, which enables him to create miniature hurricanes. Geokinesis, limited Perseus can utilize water to manipulate the earth around him. Communication, Perseus has divine authority over his father's subjects, allowing him to communicate telepathically and verbally with equines and sea creatures who treat him with respect. Zoolingualism, limited Perseus can understand and communicate with marine animals, equines, and similar creatures, who treat him with respect. These abilities began to manifest as Perseus embraced his divine heritage. Perseus stood before the ornate fountain, his fingers trembling with anticipation. With a focused gaze and a subtle gesture, he summoned tendrils of water that gracefully spiraled upward, glistening in the sunlight. As he extended his palms, the liquid threads responded, intertwining and merging into a shimmering mass that began to take the form of a dolphin. The water rippled and contorted, mirroring the sinuous grace of a living creature. Droplets hung suspended in the air before cascading down like a liquid mane, creating the illusion of flowing motion frozen in time. Perseus's brow furrowed in concentration as he meticulously refined each curve and contour, infusing the aqueous sculpture with a lifelike vitality. As the dolphin's form solidified, Perseus's hands moved in gentle, fluid arcs, coaxing the water to evolve. With a surge of power, the aquatic masterpiece burst forth, hovering above the fountain's basin. Drops of water fell like rain, only to be caught by an invisible force, creating a magical cascade around the levitating creature. But Perseus wasn't done. His focus intensified, and with a subtle shift of intention, the water beneath the dolphin transformed. It grew denser, fiercer, reshaping itself into the sleek silhouette of a shark. The intricacies of the shark's form were astonishing, down to the meticulously etched gills and the menacing gleam in its liquid eyes. With a sweep of his arm, Perseus sent the dolphin and shark into motion. They weaved through the air, an aquatic ballet choreographed by his imagination. The dolphin leaped and twirled, leaving trails of mist in its wake, while the shark glided with a controlled power that demanded respect. Water arched and curved as the two forms danced around each other, defying gravity in a mesmerizing display. Amphitrite saw her son's performance and stood in awe as the garden became a theater of liquid artistry. Perseus lowered his hands, his energy spent, but his heart elated. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting an amber glow, the water creatures gradually merged back into the fountain, dispersing into individual droplets that rejoined the basin. Amphitrite's applause rang out, a proud acknowledgement of her son's impressive display of abilities. "That was amazing," she praised with a wide smile. Returning the smile, Perseus glanced around and inquired, "Isn't father coming?" His words held a tinge of anticipation, given the ongoing Valerian festival. A soft sigh escaped Amphitrite as she replied, "He did mention he would join us. Yet, you know how vital his godly responsibilities are." Perseus's expression dimmed slightly, a touch of sadness evident, though he comprehended the significance of his father's duties. Amphitrite broke him out of his thoughts and said, "Come on, we have to meet your grandfather." Chapter 34. During the Valerian festival, Perseus and Amphitrite's arrival caused slightly commotion. Even then Arion welcomed his grandson with warmth. The Valerian dragon lords were already not fully pleased with Perseus' features. He had black hair and sea-green eyes, and to make matters worse, he didn't possess any ability to bond with dragons. However, Arion, who knew the truth of Perseus' heritage, favored him. Perseus' father had always been a mysterious figure, seldom seen, and rumored to be a humble merchant. This secrecy led to discontent among some of the other noble families, and in one such great meetings one of them, Barius Celtigar, openly voiced his disapproval. "Father, this is unjust. You are favoring a low-born individual who lacks our Valerian features and has no dragons to his name." Arion, incensed by the insult, was about to confront Barius when suddenly, Ulmo's divine voice echoed in the minds of everyone present. "I am Ulmo, god of the seas, storms, and earthquakes, and I declare Perseus as my son." Above Perseus, a radiant sign materialized, a hologram of a spinning, gleaming green light in the shape of a three-tipped spear, a trident, the symbol of Ulmo. The revelation left everyone stunned, but the surprises were far from over. Ulmo manifested before them, his powerful gaze locking onto those who dared to threaten his son. He sternly questioned, "Do you dare harm my son?" Ulmo's awe-inspiring appearance filled the Valerian dragon lords with fear, and Barius Celtigar, in particular, trembled in terror. In the face of the god's wrath, all of them quickly dropped to their knees, humbled and remorseful. Barius spoke with a quivering tone, I had no knowledge of his true heritage, my lord. I apologize deeply for questioning his lineage. Ulmo's divine presence filled the air, his immense power palpable. He regarded them all with solemnity. Perseus is under my protection, and any harm brought to him shall be met with dire consequences. His lineage may not bear the Valyrian features, but his heart is noble and his destiny intertwined with the greater design of the gods. A hushed silence fell over the assembly as Ulmo's words settled in. Perseus smiled at his father, while Amphitrite came and hugged her husband. Ulmo's expression softened, his tone gentler now. I have missed you both. Amphitrite, filled with love and joy, smiled warmly at her husband and affectionately kissed his cheek. Amidst the stunned Valyrian dragon lords, a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and fear was palpable. Their previous mockery of Amphitrite for her marriage to a commoner, Perseus, had come back to haunt them. The sudden revelation felt like a resounding slap to their pride. Yet, intriguingly, a few amongst them began to regard Perseus with newfound interest, considering the prospect of marrying off their daughters to him. Some even had the idiotic idea of catching Ulmo's eyes. In the wake of this extraordinary revelation, Arion, as the king, knew he must honor his grandson's divine connection. He gathered the noble houses of Valyria and proclaimed, by the will of the gods and the undeniable bond between Ulmo and Perseus, I hereby bestow upon my grandson the prestigious house name of Valerian. Let this act signify the union between the divine and mortal, and may House Valerian forever stand as a beacon of this sacred connection. As House Valerian, Perseus and his family became respected and revered throughout Valyria. In the annals of history, around the year c. 6990 BC, a remarkable tale unfolded, destined to resonate across realms. Amphitrite and Ulmo, the god of the seas, and Perseus Valerian, their blessed child, cast their influence not only upon the just lands of Valyria but also ignited a fascination among the people. The idea that gods could fall in love with mortals and have children became a mesmerizing tale that captured the hearts and imaginations of the masses. In the following centuries, the notion of catching the attention and favor of gods and goddesses became a great honor sought after by many. People from noble houses to commoners dreamt of such divine unions, believing that a child born of such a connection would carry immense power and privilege. They believed that becoming chosen by a deity would elevate their status and secure their family's place in history. Excerpt from Tales of Valyria, by Grand Scholar Iram from Northern Citadel Chapter 40, Chapter 35 Fighting Ironborn Raiders. In the heart of this epic clash, the Ironborn, a people renowned for their fierceness in battle and unwavering devotion to their sacred freedoms, confronted the resolute North. The Ironborn had earned their infamous moniker as the Wolves of the Sea, sailing in menacing packs with their longships, instilling terror in the hearts of all who crossed their path. Vlad and Theon stood side by side, gazing out over the turbulent ocean, their expressions grim. Over the past month, there had been numerous Ironborn raids along the coast. Haraghor was the present king of the Iron Islands from House Hor. Ravos the Raper was his son. Vlad was wearing his famous black armor, which at breastplate is decorated with a large dragon motif, and it is held in place by a leather belt. The shoulder pads are shaped like dragon wings, and they extend down to the wearer's elbows. The gauntlets are made of metal, and they have sharp claws on the fingertips. The greaves are also made of metal, and they cover the wearer's shins and ankles. The armor is a powerful and imposing piece of armor, and it is sure to strike fear into the hearts of its enemies. While Theon growled, his frustration evident. It appears they're becoming even more audacious. Vlad hummed in agreement, his voice laced with determination. Indeed, perhaps it's time to jog their memory and remind them why we earned the names Bloody Wolf and Impaler. Theon's grin widened at Vlad's words, a fierce glint in his eyes. While in the frigid waters of the northern sea stretched out before them, a vast expanse of dark, choppy waves. On the horizon, the sky was painted with hues of purple and orange as the sun dipped below the icy horizon. A biting wind howled across the deck of the Iron Raiders' longships, sending shivers through the crew's hardened bodies. Haraghor, a hulking figure with a braided beard and a patch over one eye, stood at the helm, his hand gripping the weathered wooden wheel. His other eye scanned the horizon, searching for signs of their destination, the north. The longships were a sight to behold, their ironclad bows adorned with menacing dragon heads, their sails bearing the crimson sigil of the House Hor. Each ship was manned by fierce warriors, their faces hidden behind masks of iron and leather, their bodies draped in furs to ward off the cold. As they sailed further into the northern waters, the temperature dropped even further, and the crew could see their breath in the frigid air. Icebergs loomed in the distance, drifting silently like ghostly sentinels of this desolate realm. Suddenly, a lookout in the crow's nest above let out a hoarse cry, pointing to a distant shore. "Land ho!" he shouted, his voice carrying over the howling wind. King Harag nodded, his good eye gleaming with anticipation. The iron raiders raised their oars, and the ships veered towards the icy coastline. The rugged cliffs of the north drew nearer, and the raiders knew that their destiny awaited on this frozen shore. With a thunderous crash, the longships ran aground, their iron prows digging into the covered beach. The raiders leaped from their ships, their boots sinking into the sand. They had arrived in the north, ready to plunder, conquer, and claim this unforgiving land as their own. As the iron raiders disembarked from their longships, they found themselves confronted by a gathering of northern lords, led by King Theon Stark, a towering figure with a crown of steel and a cloak made of the pelts of fierce beasts. By his side stood his son, Jason Stark, a young and determined warrior eager to prove himself in battle. Behind them, the mysterious and enigmatic Vlad Tepes, known for his cunning and ruthlessness, watched with a piercing gaze. He was an advisor, best friend, and general to King Theon and a force to be reckoned with in his own right. The northern lords, clad in fur-lined cloaks and bearing the banners of their noble houses, formed a formidable line, blocking the path of the iron raiders. King Theon's voice boomed over the icy beach, carried by the wind. "Ironborn, you have ventured far into the north," he began, his voice steady and commanding. "Winter is coming for you." Jason Stark, his eyes ablaze with determination, stepped forward. Vlad Tepes, a shadowy presence at the edge of the assembly, offered a chilling smile. "You will not be returning back to Iron Lands today." One Ironborn, a brave but foolish soul, dared to mutter, "It's them, the bloody wolf and the impaler." King Hagar yelled in vigor, "We must not step back. We will not return without plunder." Majority of the Ironborn were too greedy and did not believe the tales of the blessings of Starks or magical abilities of Vlad Tepes, but there was still some among them, who were worried and believed those tales but they could not do anything.